One a giant beast that looks like a mutated nightmare, some twisted final form of an attack titan with wings, suddenly appears right in the city center. Naturally, everyone is terrified of this hideous abomination, while our guy Wyatt looks completely lost. Meanwhile, some clueless bystanders just stand in the street, with their mouths wide open, instead of doing the smart thing and running for their lives. But right in the crowd, one blank-faced teenager stands out. This quiet kid is indeed our main character, and he looks totally stunned by the giant creature, but then his attention completely shifts. His arm starts sparking wildly, glowing as if he is a human conductor. He panics instantly, caught in a sudden wave of sheer shock and pain. With a loud scream, he releases a massive electrical surge, bright enough to black out the entire neighborhood. But the strangeness does not end here. A bizarre glowing pink light suddenly appears in the sky and drops straight onto his face, sinking right into the middle of his forehead. Our black-haired hero eventually wakes up in a sterile hospital bed. He feels completely exhausted, wondering if he is finally awakening his talent. Or maybe he is just losing his mind, since those intense visions feel exactly like the wild hallucinations that trigger during the awakening process. You see, 100 years ago, massive spatial rifts cracked open across the Earth, and terrifying monsters poured out to terrorize the human race. They invaded the planet, bringing humanity to the very brink of extinction. But hope remained. A miracle was just around the corner. The strange dimensional energy leaking from those beasts sparked a brand new evolution. This unique power stimulated dormant human traits, giving rise to incredible talents. A select group of survivors awakened strong abilities, securing a future for humanity. This incredible breakthrough officially kicked off the modern era of talents. Now back to Wyatt. He hears a sudden knock on his hospital door. A sweet voice calls out to him, revealing he has a family. But instead of answering, he sits in silence and checks his stats. His testing device quickly confirms the worst. His awakened talent is pathetic. It is the lowest tier possible. Talk about a massive blow to his dreams. He feels completely defeated, especially since he had such high hopes. He truly wanted to become a powerful martial warrior for one simple reason. He wanted to protect his little sister. Speak of the devil right then. His bright and cheerful sister bursts inside, looking absolutely full of life. This energetic girl immediately asks her brother how his test went. But Wyatt cannot bring himself to tell the truth, so he lies. He hides his deep disappointment and puts on a very convincing smile. He promises her that he will do whatever it takes to succeed. He vows to become an elite martial warrior, no matter the cost. He is ready to risk everything for her. Thankfully, his sweet sister happily cheers for her brother, totally oblivious to his actual test results. She is just glad he is okay, even bringing his favorite food. To celebrate his discharge, soon after, the young girl heads back home, entirely unaware of her brother's quiet struggle, but luck was finally turning. Looking for any way to save his family, he checked if his sister had any actual talents. Unfortunately, her skills were absolute trash, but then the gloomy teenager noticed something incredibly bizarre. Out of nowhere, he could actually see his sister's personal status window that was supposed to be completely private. Something only the owner could ever open, so having it show up was pretty weird. Not only that, but the system window was actively roasting her, reminding everyone just how weak she was. Suddenly, the girl grabbed his hand, saying that they needed to eat before their food got cold. The moment they made contact, another window flashed before his eyes and informed the shocked boy that his sister's trash talents could actually be copied. Talk about a crazy turn of events. But a decent brother could not just steal from his sister. He was still processing this. But a brilliant light of hope had finally entered his otherwise miserable life. Turns out, getting merged with that strange pink orb was actually worth it. His sister remained completely oblivious, happily offering him his favorite dish. which she had cooked especially for him. He offered a nervous thank you. Appreciating the delicious meal, as they ate, he could not stop thinking about his incredible chance to finally escape a life of utter mediocrity. Stealing other people's hard work was amazing, but he still had some morals. He refused to test this out on his own little sister, so that was off limits. Still, it was frustrating that her foundation was far better than his. Her rare frost talent just needed to awaken before she could dominate everyone. He silently sent a quick mental message to his deceased parents in heaven, telling them to rest in peace because he was about to scam his way to success. With this incredible new information, the young man was ready. He stepped out into the streets, fully determined to steal power and conquer. But first things first, he had to test out his new skill. His eyes widened as he scanned the area like a hungry predator searching for prey. The new scanning ability was actually pretty effective when it came to viewing someone's talent within a 3-meter range, quite a short distance, but it matched his low-level status perfectly, the only random people around him were total failures. He had the absolute worst talent pool to choose from. What an eyesore. He wanted to copy a decent mid-tier talent. Since he was in no hurry to settle for garbage skills, he really needed to go take a look at the academy, now that he had awakened a skill. Even a low-tier one, copying someone else might upgrade his own abilities. The gloomy main character intended to apply to an academy that required a talent evaluation. That was when he came up with a brilliant idea. He immediately headed straight to the Linhai Base 5th Academy with every intention of cheating his way into the school. He was absolutely certain that plenty of students inside would possess decent mid-tier talents, but with his new copying power, he would easily surpass all of them. 10 days later, the scene shifts back to the Linhai Base 5th Academy inside Martial Stadium number 3. To actually become a martial warrior, one had to first become an apprentice, and to do that, they first had to learn the basic body refinement techniques. Explaining the training technique, some guy who looked like a classic martial arts master was shouting all these rules to the crowd gathered around him. He reminded them that success meant creating a swirling air vortex. Everyone was busy meditating, but one poor guy just passed out. The rest of this weak batch was already falling over. The failures did not matter, though. To become a proper martial warrior, you needed that vortex. Meanwhile, our guy struggling hard like a tiny caterpillar trying to shove a massive boulder up a mountain. His talent was basically non-existent, and the master quickly made it clear that they were honestly the absolute worst class of students he had ever seen in his entire career. That is a pretty brutal reality check. He urged them to look at the brilliant example of Chen and wake up instead of acting like a bunch of useless trash. The students seemed to take those harsh insults rather personally, but who was this legendary Chen they had to mimic? Turns out he was an absolute prodigy who climbed to martial apprentice status in just one single month, prompting the headmaster himself to recruit him as a personal disciple. Our guy was quite impressed, figuring this genius had to be top tier. Right then, another student smirked and showed off a signed paper from that very star student. Honestly, it was pretty pathetic. They had fallen. They were literally getting hyped up over some ink on a piece of paper. Once Chen became as strong as the principal, he planned on selling that autograph to cover all his living expenses for many months. The people in this universe were pretty desperate if basic paper could pay rent like that. Speak of the devil, because Chen was walking straight toward them, so our main character wanted to get a closer look. Wow, he was actually kind of ugly. All that talent, and yet not a single decent gene was spared for actual good looks on him. It was almost funny that our weird protagonist was actually way more handsome. The senior immediately rushed over to grab more autographs to sell. Later on, just like a hunter seeing prey, our protagonist was thrilled to spot that walking bag of talent coming right toward him. Honestly, Chen looked like a highly spoiled knockoff version of Draco Malfoy, for all that hype. His talent was actually pretty average. Still, our main character decided to go over and say a very friendly hello to him. Hello, that Chen guy had the absolute ugliest smirk on his face, bragging about how he only came by to encourage them, saying he was too busy for signatures. At the moment, but our protagonist quickly saw his golden chance and asked for at least a simple handshake. Everyone was rather excited about such an opportunity. The naive hero agreed, and a line quickly formed. The normal students came over and got a very simple handshake. Then our main guy stepped up, looking absolutely desperate for any actual contact. He had this intense look in his eyes, like a hunter spotting some fresh prey. And he fully intended to snatch up every last bit of that talent. To everyone else, it looked like a normal greeting, but our guy knew exactly what he had accomplished. He watched the man walk away with a highly satisfied smile on his face. Our guy had just successfully stolen his first real high-quality talent. Soon after, a massive storm rolled over the academy. Rain began pouring from the sky as he successfully copied a mid-tier cultivation talent. But fusing it was a major gamble, with no guarantee of survival. He still remembered the agonizing pain from the last time he fused a power. Yi Tian felt cautious, but he refused to back down like a coward. After all the trouble he took to steal it, he initiated the fusion. Instantly, a violent storm of pure energy erupted inside his body. He felt that foreign essence tearing through his veins, trying to overwhelm him. But his foundation held strong, fighting back for total dominance. The fusion process was absolute torture, but our boy wasn't giving up. On his hands and knees, he clawed the floor and growled in agony. He would make this power submit. Outside, lightning ripped across the sky. Yi Tian slowly dragged himself up, finally acquiring his new talent. He had won the battle, taming the fierce energy once and for all. Upgrading his cultivation potential was easily worth the excruciating pain. He grinned with triumph, but he needed a 30-day cooldown before copying again. This meant he could basically steal another powerful ability every single month. That 30-day wait was nothing. This copy ability was absolutely insane. And honestly, who could blame him for already wanting his next power-up? First, he had to test out the body-refining technique he learned today. He wanted to verify if his newly fused talent actually worked properly. Almost instantly, the status screen of a successful cultivation popped up. Yi Tian could not believe it. His risks actually paid off. Stealing that cultivation talent was totally worth it. The technique was now a breeze. It flowed so much easier now that he possessed mid-tier talent. Forget about being a basic martial warrior, he was aiming for the elite level. At this rate, he might even reach the rank of a great martial warrior. All of this was thanks to his unfair cheat ability to copy other talents. He was a total talent thief. 1 month later, a bright moon rose. It cast light over a grotesque beast lurking in the shadows of the city. This monstrous creature was dripping with pure bloodlust as it stalked the streets. Its eyes were locked onto an unsuspecting family heading home from dinner. Meanwhile, Yi Tian was walking nearby, thinking about how much further he had to go. His classmate Chen Dong was getting private tutoring and improving much faster. Having a high-level master really gave a student an insane advantage. But his thoughts were cut short when the beast finally decided to strike. In an instant, it brutally slaughtered the father of a little girl. The beast bit his head off, leaving the rest of his body behind. Yi Tian was left completely stunned by the sheer horror of the scene. Panic immediately set in as terrified citizens began screaming and running away. No one was going to stay behind to become the monster's next meal. This was the very first time Yi Tian had seen a beast this close. He noticed the little girl was too traumatized to even try to run. But that was fine, he could easily move in and save her. After all, he stole these cheat powers to protect people in situations like this. Now it was finally his time to step up and show his true strength. But that beast was way too fast, and our weak F-class hero crawled along like a broken-down car. Just sputtering along with a completely trash engine, moving forward sure, but nowhere near fast enough. To outrun a monster, luckily, a real powerhouse suddenly drops down directly from above. Plummeting from the clouds with a massive, glistening pillar, this glowing tower of power turned out to be a sword, slicing the asphalt right down the middle with ease. A clean split, that massive blade instantly sends the startled beast backpedaling. But the creature is not about to hand over its life so easily, not without a fight. It lunges forward again, snarling madly at the intruder who dared to ruin its spotlight. This new guy rocks a shredded cape and looks incredibly beefy. Imagine a massive bodybuilder, but with the smug face of a corrupt politician. He casually apologizes for his late arrival, introducing himself as Captain Gale Wolf. Seriously, what a ridiculous name, but everyone here is too terrified to complain. The captain tells the crowd to stand back and leave this silver moon wolf to him. He orders our young lad to keep the little girl safe, quite heroic of him. Our main guy agrees to shield the kid, though her bright pink hair is incredibly suspicious. Especially since her supposed father has dark hair, but whatever, the hero charges forward. He clashes directly with the beast in a brutal display of raw, heavy muscle. The violent scene is so intense that Yeti quickly covers the little girl's eyes. The captain admits this beast packs a pretty solid punch, but he is not worried. His own flexible weapon is far superior, capable of striking from any angle imaginable. He whips it around to slam the beast's blind spot, but the silver moon wolf is incredibly agile, slipping past Gale Wolf's strikes with relative ease. Unfortunately, the beast forgot that these humans brought backup. Now the poor creature gets completely blindsided by a whole squad of heroes appearing out of thin air. Honestly, you almost feel bad for the wolf as he gets totally overwhelmed. They are playing dirty. The injured beast tries to flee, but the squad coordinates. They call out to their captain, ready to impale the target together. They ready their long, sharp weapons to finish this. The cornered beast is completely overwhelmed, forced down under a barrage of heavy attacks. The squad pauses for a moment to check if their target is actually down for good. But none of those strikes hit any vital organs. The wolf still has life left. Suddenly, it unhinges its jaws and lets out a deafening, echoing roar. It enters a terrifying blood-burst state, sending a wave of panic through the squad. They leap backward, bracing themselves for a fight against an absolute steroid-fueled monster. Meanwhile, Yeti is still hiding nearby. He's always looking for a sneaky opportunity. It looks like the target might actually escape, but Gale Wolf isn't worried yet. He confidently yells to his team that he won't let the creature slip away. Right on cue, a sparkling pink whirlwind rushes onto the battlefield. It is a female hunter wearing a pretty revealing outfit, carrying a massive bow. She draws her weapon, letting loose a highly precise arrow aimed at the beast. That projectile flies straight toward the head of the massive, goat-like hybrid monster. The creature clearly sees the attack coming, but somehow it still fails to dodge. Talk about terrible agility stats, minus 1,000 points for that reaction time. It is completely down. Gale Wolf immediately starts laughing, mocking the fallen creature. He boasts that the beast was far too weak to ever face them, acting like they actually had not been struggling at all until Miss Cupid showed up. The hunters were busy praising each other's combat skills, while Yayan could only stand there and watch from the background, but he was not watching the heroic fighters. No, he was completely focused on the monster's unique talents. The creature possessed a pretty basic blood talent, but its speed was at least novice tier. That was pure gold to Yayan. He was practically drooling just thinking about it. Honestly, he was gaping in total awe at the incredible lineup of talents laid out in front of him. He was truly focused on those monster skills. Suddenly, the beast stood right back up like a sucker who did not know when to quit. Speed types were always a pain. And all the heroes were already planning to get drinks. It was like they could not even see the creature standing right there. Luckily, someone finally noticed and screamed for everyone to watch out. They spun around like shocked clowns. Because the monster was up again, and it was absolutely enraged. The poor beast had just been jumped, and now they were celebrating already. Naturally, it was furious. The high rankers quickly got into position, assuming they could easily finish it off since it seemed so incredibly weak. A massive, muscular wolf-like hunter yelled at Yayin, telling him to run and escape because this area was far too dangerous. Yet Yayin's obsessive mind had absolutely no intention of backing down. Just watch what happens. Our boy was literally salivating over this golden opportunity, like a maniac. The young man charged forward, completely leaving behind the girl he was supposed to protect. His eyes were locked on his targets with a single quick strike. He made contact with his new victim. The monster's talent was successfully copied. It seemed enough time had passed for some quick thievery. Now that he could match the creature's speed, he launched himself into the air, landing right on top of it like a wild tamer. Now the crazy kid was going to humble the beast by using its very own power to grind it down to dust. Yayin unleashed a brutal onslaught, completely ignoring any danger. A relentless rain of heavy punches began to fall, pummel the creature until blood started raining down from its corpse. Our guy had discovered a brilliant trick. He could actually just copy the talent of his target by touching them multiple times. Yayin was literally devouring the beast's raw power with an incredibly sinister expression on his face. His hands were covered in its blood when Gale Wolf forcefully pulled him back, shouting that the creature was dead. Of course, the creepy guy knew that, but he was enjoying himself. A bit too much, but that was enough obsessive behavior for today. And he did not want the veteran hunters finding out he was a complete freak. So our guy stepped back and let the rescue team handle the cleanup. Every single carcass would be disposed of, and the girl was kept safe. With everything resolved, the veteran hunter waved a friendly goodbye to Yayin, saying that he looked forward to seeing the boy and his squad eventually. Honestly, the hunter would never say that if he knew what a creep Yayin actually was, but with all of that craziness finally over and done, Yayin scrubbed the blood off his hands, proving he still cared about basic hygiene. In reality, he just wanted to hide all the evidence. With a clean face and a heavy sigh, the boy finally headed back home. He headed home under the dark night sky, arriving much later than usual. But to his absolute surprise, the house was dead silent. His little sister was fast asleep on the couch, looking entirely peaceful. A stark contrast to the monster-like brother watching over her. He was glad she was safe, especially after what he had just witnessed. Seeing a real beast tonight, while his dinner sat quietly on the table, changed everything. It was 10 times, no, 100 times more terrifying than any rumor. That terrible beast had killed that man in an instant. Yayin could not help but grin like a madman, knowing what he had to do. Protecting his sister meant he had to become a martial warrior as fast as possible. Sitting down to eat, he wondered if he could fuse his stolen talents immediately. Now anyone with a lick of common sense would have chosen a safer spot. A place where his sister would not hear him screaming during the reconstruction process. After all, fusing his body with beast traits was bound to be excruciating. But Yayin did not care. He wanted power at any cost. Since he had successfully taken the speed talent from that dying creature, our resident grave robber was ready to copy the talent. He was literally fusing his soul with a mutated hound he found dead. Naturally, merging with a monster was going to hurt like absolute hell. It felt like 1,000 hammers shattered his skull. A fitting punishment for a shameless grave robber. Yayin groaned in agony. He muttered that it felt like every single bone in his body was snapping. It was a brutal scene, but his muscles were already beginning to reshape. Slowly but surely, he was carving out his path to become an alpha. Honestly, would you go through this much agony just for some cheat powers? That class, a warrior title, was worth it, but his body kept reshaping. The physical changes were so intense and graphic that it was terrifying. He actually began to worry if this talent copy had somehow failed. Imagine looting a corpse just to end up failing the fusion process. He genuinely started to believe he had finally reached the end of the road. Leaving his defenseless sister alone in this brutal world was his biggest fear. He could not bear the thought of leaving his sister entirely on her own. He might be a shameless thief, but he refused to die on her now. Night quickly bled into morning, and he was still thrashing on the floor. Fortunately, the excruciating pain finally stopped, and the worst had passed. Somehow, he survived the brutal consequences of looting that beast. Yian pushed himself up, gasping for air like he had run a marathon. He stared in disbelief, his jaw practically dropping all the way to the floor. Miraculously, his limbs were still attached, and he was completely whole. Instead, his legs began to crackle with a vibrant pink energy. It turns out his risky gamble had actually paid off in a massive way. His eyes widened at the notification. He had successfully gained a mid-tier talent. And a novice speed talent, proving once and for all that shameless copying pays. It worked perfectly. Later that day, deep inside a quiet grove at the academy, a strange pink glow showed that Yuetin was already hard at work training. He bolted across the training ground, moving fast enough to kick up dust. His stolen power was finally showing results, pushing his physical limits even further. He was hitting speeds his old, fragile body could never dream of achieving. Elated by his new agility, Yuetin leapt effortlessly from one rooftop to another. His eyes burned with excitement as a bright path finally opened before him. This was the thrilling life of a genius who had yet to be caught. Out of sheer joy, he tore through the forest grove with a massive grin. He laughed like a kid who had just gotten away with the ultimate heist. Moving like a blur, he casually snatched falling leaves straight out of midair. With the swiftness of the silver moon wolf secured, he was truly unstoppable. He bounced between trees, testing the absolute limits of his newly acquired speed. Once he finally burned off that initial rush, Yuetin stopped to rest. It was time to analyze his current power and see where he stood. While his speed rivaled a true martial warrior, his raw strength remained low. He needed a solid plan to rapidly boost his overall cultivation levels. And the best way to do that was another round of talent stealing. Right on cue, his senior brother walked up to him with perfect timing. Yuetin was thrilled to find the perfect guide for his next hunt. The senior was stunned to find his younger brother training so intensely. He praised Yuetin's quick development, thoroughly impressed by his dedication. Yuetin happily took the compliment, always eager to play the humble student. But then the older boy asked if he wanted to grow even faster. That was exactly what Yuetin wanted. The senior gave a knowing smile. He leaned in and asked if Yuetin had ever consumed beast blood. These martial artists were absolutely wild, willing to do anything for power. The senior admitted his own rapid growth came from drinking beast blood. While Yuetin was shameless, even he found this concept a bit extreme. Yet this was a moral line that Yuetin was happy to cross. In fact, he immediately regretted not taking the blood from that dead wolf. Simply copying its speed talent suddenly felt like a massive missed opportunity. He should have harvested its core essence while he had the chance. Luckily for him, his senior already had a plan to secure more. There was an upcoming event that would solve all their resource problems. Although the method sounded dangerous, Yuetin was more than ready to try. The high authorities of Linhai Base had recently opened a new wild zone. This vast wilderness was designed as a trial area for the academies. And the ultimate prize for passing this brutal exam was beast blood. Hearing that students were allowed to consume it, Yuetin grew excited. His senior explained that the danger level of this zone was low. Most of the high-tier beasts had already been cleared out completely. Only weaker descendants remained, making it the perfect hunting ground for them. This was his big chance to rapidly skyrocket his strength before anyone noticed. To find yet another victim to scheme against, that chubby senior just kept on boasting about how incredibly generous he was for sharing this secret intel. All of this endless yapping was just a trick to get the main character to join his squad and snag that precious monster blood. Sure, joining up sounded like what normal people would do. But our greedy thief had to seriously think about whether he actually wanted to share all that sweet loot. No way. His chubby senior was shocked by this hesitant response, especially since he was the one who graciously shared this exclusive, top-secret news. But the young jerk just smirked and offered a fake apology, saying he would join the senior's squad some other time, yet was truly a cold-hearted, selfish rat. He just walked away even though the big, slow guy kept screaming for him to wait up. Teaming up with others was honestly way too troublesome for him. If his secret thieving ability ever got exposed, things would get pretty dangerous. It was much safer to keep working completely alone. Besides, his current goal was just to grab some of that rare monster blood as cultivating material so he could finally break through to the martial warrior realm. Honestly, that was all the main character cared about, and he would do absolutely anything to make it happen. 1 month later at the 5th Academy main office, a grumpy official asked why the main character even dared to apply when he had not received the official exam invitation. He even started to suspect a major information leak. Play detective, cheap. Seriously, there was no reason for this professor to act like Sherlock. And despite his obvious, greedy intentions, the main character had already reached martial apprentice level. He was fully qualified to enter the tournament. Still, the arrogant professor just scoffed, clearly looking down on the lower class, chuckling that he just wanted these toddlers out of diapers to survive a bit longer. After all, they were entering this brutal event to be treated like human floor wipes. The man laughed, tossing the application papers right in his face, mocking his apparent death wish. Our guy had to bend down and gather those papers off the dusty floor. Peak humiliation, but he would get even later. Next up was the standard liability waiver. Eager to die, sign here. He had to agree to the terms. It was basically one of those shady forms where you agree to take full responsibility for getting shipped straight to the local cemetery. The boy understood the terms perfectly, while the grumpy teacher kept trying to frighten him away. It almost seemed this angry gorilla had a heart of gold. Too bad he showed it terribly, or maybe it was just brass, since he would not stop treating our guy like absolute trash. But our little zombie boy was holding back, biting his tongue until he got the waiver. Smiling like a sneaky demon, the kid smirked. He finally got his application officially submitted. The professor just sighed in sheer annoyance, wondering if these poor losers honestly thought this trial was for commoners to participate in. The old snob clearly despised the weak and only believed in raw, absolute power. He eagerly anticipated watching the kid fail, while our boy was busy planning to make the old fool eat his words. The stormy sky finally cleared, ushering in the dawn of a brand new day. Our guy's his younger sister sat up in bed, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. She stood up and called out to her brother, saying it was time to wake up. Her hair looked like a complete wig. She was absolutely amazed by her brother. He actually had the rare ability to cook real food that wasn't dangerous. No poison here. Turns out Etienne was a man of surprises, and then some. She quickly spotted a note about an upcoming school event lasting 3 days. Our girl was incredibly surprised, wondering what kind of event took that long. Seriously, she shouldn't overthink. It was better not to worry her pretty head. What if he returned in a coffin? Still, she couldn't help but worry. She was terrified. Meanwhile, the school seemed to be in full Halloween mode. If Halloween meant offering up fresh corpses to the god of the underworld, Ravens circled the area, beating their heavy wings over the ruins. The place was in absolute shambles. It looked like a complete disaster zone. It literally looked like Godzilla had a wild tap dance here with King Kong. This whole venue was so wrecked, like an apocalyptic tango had just taken place. And right at the center of this dark venue, a massive crowd gathered. This was the spot, the place where the match of death would happen. Tons of candidates were prepping, suiting up, and talking strategy with their friends. Everyone was gearing up for the absolute biggest competition of their lives. Then Yi Tian arrived, immediately noticing the massive crowd that had gathered. Apparently, these people were all top students from the 5 major academies. Other schools were competing too. Trust me, this was about to get wild. That was interesting. Suddenly, a loudmouth appeared cursing the 5th academy. He seemed incredibly pressed that trash from a garbage school dared to show. They sure talked big for garbage that was probably going to get crushed. Standing right next to this trash talker was a massive, burly blonde guy. He called him young master, whispering some pretty dark advice. They could hunt both fierce beasts and other human students during this exam. So the more weaklings they picked off, the more twisted fun they'd have. The arrogant young master laughed, saying the weak should feel blessed to be hunted. They were acting high on something. A senior quickly pointed those two out. That loudmouth was Moab, a top-tier genius from the 1st academy. He was apparently the absolute strongest of the Mo family's younger generation. So that yapping parrot was from the Mo family. No wonder he acted so arrogant. No pressure, still Yi Tian wasn't fazed. Suddenly, someone else appeared. He shouted for Moab to stop, practically dripping with pure, cold aura. The crowd whispered, asking how he dared enter the 1st academy's camp like that. Especially with his sword completely unsheathed, this new guy stalked forward with purpose. He approached the Mo heir like an angry tiger, glaring at the pompous peacock. The newcomer cursed Moab, openly promising to slice him up like fresh sashimi. It seemed Moab recognized him, mocking that he was just going to lose again. He growled back with pure hatred. Now Yi Tian was getting curious. Honestly, he really wanted to know who this newcomer was, and soon got his answer. Apparently, this was Li Yun, a genius swordsman representing the 2nd academy. All these academies were ranked by numbers, making it pretty easy to bully rivals. The 2nd academy's top prodigy had already lost to Moa Bei in the past, and he was still incredibly sore about it. Then, the angry professor arrived. He spat on the ground, hating anyone he deemed a worthless peasant. The man roared at them to stop fooling around, asking if they were blind. Our resident creep remembered him. Yes, he still held a massive grudge. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Yan did something totally bizarre. He started cheering. He screamed for Lai Yunking to kick Moa Bei's butt. This left the aura farmer completely baffled, wondering why he was cheering. Most people feared the arrogant Moa Bei, and they did not even know each other. It was incredibly awkward, but Yan was shamelessly loving it. Why was he here? Simple, to harvest some fresh, top-tier talent. Every single competitor in this arena was just another pig awaiting slaughter. But fighting was banned outside the wild zone. Violators would be disqualified. The 2nd academy's prodigy spat, "I will let Moa Bei live, for now." With a tense glare, both rivals finally lowered their weapons, a temporary peace. Once inside the wild zone, no rules, it was going to be total chaos. He swore to beat him senseless, but Moa Bei just scoffed. He called his challenger an undisciplined mutt, then turned his attention away. He looked at the weird kid who cheered, demanding his name. Taking full advantage of this, the creep introduced himself as Yelian. From the 5th Academy, better known as the Ultimate Loser Headquarters. Instantly, Yan scanned his target's power. What skills did he have? Lai Yunking actually liked the name. He even turned it into a proverb. But as Yan checked his stats, he realized Lai Yunking was pretty average. Low-tier cultivation talent, barely mid-tier sword skills. What a letdown. Seriously, was everyone here trash? All that hype, yet they are all mid. Expected from students, honestly. Still, he could steal those sword skills. He just needed to copy them from his new temporary hero. Yayan stretched out his hand, practically drooling for that sweet talent. Luring the guy into a handshake, he masked his demonic intentions with kindness. Go crush Moa Bay out there, he urged, sounding like a supportive friend. His hand remained outstretched. The smiling aura farmer readily took the bait. Lai Yunking shook his hand, wishing him luck. Let's both survive this, he said. Talk about an easy target. The poor guy walked right into the trap. Yayan successfully copied his sword talent, smiling as the crime was done. Suddenly the horns blew. The wild exam was officially starting right now. The elite First Academy students immediately rushed forward into the dense trees. They sprinted ahead, a massive head start before anyone else could even move. The competition was on. Yayan Sr. bolted forward to find his squad. Don't get eaten out there, Yayan yelled after him with a laugh. The First Academy went in first, then the second, typical favoritism. The Fifth Academy had to wait until the very end, cruel and unfair. But our clever protagonist didn't care about that. He had other plans. His real priority, hunting down weak targets to harvest their sweet talents. He waved goodbye to his latest victim, turning his focus to the path ahead. Yayan had to focus on the task ahead. Once the other boy left, he shifted. The quiet schemer slipped away, expression cold as a surgeon preparing to carve. This selfish opportunist had only one goal: progress, no matter the cost. He finally tracked down a secluded spot to execute his master plan. The kid had saved his energy all month. Now he finally secured the ultimate prize. The second school prodigy, with that stolen talent locked down in his grasp, it was time to unleash the power, his eyes flashing with a devilish red glow. The main character prepared to fuse the skills, ready to dish out serious pain. This was a top-tier skill stolen from an elite who trained hard for his entire life, not that a shameless thief like Yayan cared about that. His physical form was already used to fighting off raw, stolen energy inside him. It didn't matter how hard the skill resisted, the talent simply had to yield completely. In this dog-eat-dog world, finders keepers was the only rule that mattered. Yayan began a bizarre ritual of thrashing around the forest to absorb the power. Frenzied raw movement, so intense that a massive beam of pure light erupted straight into the sky. The kid devoured that stolen skill like a feast. A delicious feast. He couldn't help but wear a smug, devious grin. A truly devious smirk spread across his face, having plundered such an elite talent. He was ready to test out his brand new toy on the environment. Destruction initiated. He instantly unleashed a devastating strike on the nearby trees. Honestly, watching them shatter, you would think the forest owed him money. But environmental preservation was the absolute last thing on the mind of Yayan. After completely clearing the area, he felt confident the fusion was a success. Stealing anything less than supreme power would just be a massive waste of time. Now, acting like an absolute beast, he was fully ready for the grand tournament. He would show those arrogant high school elites what a real underdog can achieve. The top 4 academies had already headed straight into the dense forest zones. Now the 5th Academy took their turn. They were basically a band of outcasts. Still, they marched forward into extreme danger, but the master thief of talents ditched them instantly to walk alone. He was busy generating aura on his own. Total, perfect isolation, just the way he liked it as he flexed his stolen power. Flexing cut short, a strange, metallic slithering sound echoed from nearby. Sure enough, a massive green serpent was creeping through the ruined streets. The monster was absolutely colossal and clearly looking for an easy meal. This destroyed city was a weird nesting ground, but it offered great prey. Zero hesitation, even facing this colossal beast, Yayan didn't flinch. Completely unfazed, his talent-stealing power made him the ultimate apex predator. The massive snake flicked its giant tongue, trying to intimidate the kid. Goofy, honestly, it just made the giant beast look utterly ridiculous. The main character could not take this opponent seriously for a second. He dashed forward, blade drawn, ready to harvest his first monster kill. The serpent hissed, utterly despising this weak-looking teenager standing before it. He looked like an absolute nobody, but appearances in this world are extremely deceiving. With a swift motion, Yayan decided it was time to end this hunt. He watched with absolute satisfaction as his blade neatly severed the head. Thinking it just got taken out by a total loser, there was no way to face its serpent family in the afterlife, not that our guy actually cared, to add insult to injury. He quickly snatched an eyeball from the carcass, robbing. Living humans was not enough, he had to loot every dead beast he saw. Scoffing that these monsters were pretty weak, our resident thief continued his quiet march. After all, the exam rules promised top ranks for whoever slaughtered the most monsters. Since that first prey was kind of weak, he wondered how many more he needed to rack up proper points. He still had a long way to go, but he did not mind. It just meant more targets to hunt down first. Suddenly, a suspicious and foreboding cry for help echoed through the testing grounds. Maybe it was just another beast sobbing because it got wrecked by a nobody using borrowed firearm powers. Either way, our favorite thief had officially upgraded to an armed robber. He dashed through the ruined area. When he heard that desperate cry and paused, wait, did this guy actually steal some actual decency? He was seriously considering saving someone in this deadly match. He turned around and saw his senior classmate completely surrounded by a pack of wolves. It was a pathetic sight, but it would be pretty cruel to ignore. His senior, and fortunately, the heavy guy, was not being a total wimp. He brandished a weapon, yelling that there was no way he was dying before getting officially laid. That was cute. He honestly believed he was going to find a wife, too. Bad he did not have the guts to back it up, running and screaming the second the wolves charged at him. It was pretty pathetic, but our main character felt a sudden flash of sympathy, acting before he could even think. He grabbed an arrow like some kind of dark cupid, launching it directly at the wolf, which collapsed and ended up dying. Instantly, one shot, one kill. The poor creature stood absolutely zero chance. The senior was stunned, seeing his junior drop in front of him like an angel of death. Rocks scattered everywhere. After taking down the beasts, you would think he would ask if his classmate was doing all right. But no, this greedy goblin only wanted to steal all the monster points for himself. The senior was utterly shocked to see him there, yelling at him to run. Well, this little devil had come too far to start running now. He had not even gotten a proper chance to beat up any actual human targets yet. The senior was foolish to think a sadist would leave before he got a real chance to torment people. Still, this was a great opportunity to flex. Speed talent activated. He launched forward like a speeding bullet. Both his senior and the wolves stood absolutely no chance of tracking his mind-bending speed. Yet another stolen power. Yayan might be a thief, but he was a pretty good one. He had adapted to his new speed quickly enough to use it, tearing through the shocked monsters before they could even graze him with a single claw. The butcher had arrived at his execution ground, aiming for total success. After completely overwhelming his victims with raw speed, he whipped out his sword talent. His massive weapon sliced through the weak beast horde spread out right in front of him, unleashing a burst of power so massive that they fell left and right. This was pure power and death, and he absolutely loved every single second. Left and right, it was pure power and death, and our guy loved every second of it. The senior watched, trembling. He simply could not believe his eyes. Strong pawn had become. In this loser game, the fat senior was left behind. He was completely in the dust. Suddenly, pawn ripped his massive weapon straight out of the dead wolf throat, leaving the beast to choke. Pawn turned to the coward. Did he want any of the loot? Of course, Fatty knew way better than to try and claim any points now. while the rest of his comrades were currently bleeding out on the cold floor. Pan could keep the wolf fangs. The senior wanted absolutely none of them. Once everything was gathered, Pan asked his senior a simple question. Are you continuing like this? Luckily, the fat senior knew when to quit. He was a complete coward, sure, but he was wise enough to give up. Fatty wished Pan the best of luck. This exam was too dangerous. Surviving was pure luck. His teammates were badly injured but still alive. That was actually amazing news, meaning he had a chance to save them immediately. He would gladly act as a heavy carrier donkey if it saved their lives. They had to survive. Hearing this, Pan happily agreed to the plan, because he had no desire to carry dead weight around anyway. Suddenly, Fatty stopped the kid, warning him about a massive threat in the zone. There was a highly dangerous pseudo-beast roaming around this wild exam zone. This caught the attention of Pan. He asked his senior about the monster. It was apparently the chaotic term for any mid-tier level threat. Fatty heard elites from the First Academy were hunting it. They were currently besieging a massive spotted snake over 10 meters in length. Wait, Pan had already slain that exact monster yesterday with ease. Better yet, that stupid beast was worth a full 500 points. Pan had struck absolute gold. Talk about an incredible stroke of luck. He was thrilled. He had swatted that giant snake like a mosquito. Grabbing its eye was a brilliant move. Pan quickly played dumb, asking which direction the monster had fled, hiding his massive, greedy grin. Fatty pointed toward the southeast, warning him to be extremely careful. There might be another massive serpent lurking in this deadly maze. But Pan immediately bolted, not even bothering to say a proper goodbye to him. He left Fatty in the dust for those points. What a greedy, selfish guy. If he secured those 500 points, first place in the exam was guaranteed. Fame meant getting access to incredible new cheat opportunities to steal talent. He would rob every genius blind. The fat senior tried to warn him. But Pan was already far gone, zooming away with his stolen speed power. He raced forward like he was running to save a loved one. That was exactly how incredibly thirsty he was for those sweet exam points. Suddenly, he screeched to a complete halt and scanned the quiet clearing. Pan stood in a strange place, littered with fallen, groaning elite disciples. They wore First Academy uniforms, looking absolutely battered and defeated. A powerful opponent had clearly crushed them all. This was great news. It meant he was definitely moving in the correct direction. Just ahead, Pan spotted a blazing, fiery tornado tearing through the forest. Off in the distance, a blazing flare of trouble and hellfire lit up the sky. But that was fantastic news, because that was exactly where our resident cheat was heading. He zoomed right over, absolutely certain his plot armor would keep him safe. And man, the place was a total inferno. Buildings, ground, everything was up in flames. Absolutely everything was burning. Our guy might be a cheat, but he is no idiot. He crouched low on a nearby rooftop to scan the area and assess the chaos. His eyes went wide with sudden greed when he spotted the massive pseudo-beast below. Man, that thing was phenomenally ugly. The only decent thing about it was its fiery crimson hair. It looked like a mermaid gone horribly wrong, lacking any curves, and the bottom half was just a giant scaly snake. The monster was absolutely massive, too. A bunch of first-year academy students were desperately trying to bring it down. So much for their elite talent. This creature was not going to die easily, which made it the perfect target practice for our favorite little neighborhood thief. Down on the ground, a famous elite student was already barking out orders. He treated his classmates like cheap pawns, letting them throw their lives away. He kept yelling at them to slay the monster while doing absolutely nothing himself. He wanted those 500 points and was willing to sacrifice everyone to get them. He probably would not even pay for their funerals. Meanwhile, his arrogant, blonde sidekick yelled that the great beast was finally running out of steam. Its stamina and firepower were draining fast, making this the perfect moment to strike. Hearing them talk trash, the beast roared in pure anger, and just like that, it was finally time for young Master Mo to take full credit for everyone else's hard work. What a truly brave young master! The cowardly noble leapt forward, eager to strike. He soared high into the air, flying directly over the back of the colossal beast. Compared to its massive scale, he looked like a tiny ant, yet the boy somehow managed to land his massive sword, splattering dark purple liquid everywhere. And trust me, that was not grape juice, that was the monster's blood. It screeched in agony, and the ugly python did not take kindly to the surprise attack. 100 other students had already been attacking it just to wear it down. The poor creature could not even catch a break, and now this kid was stabbing it with a giant metal stick, so of course, retaliation was coming. The beast immediately whipped its massive tail, sending young Master Mo sailing backwards. His weapon went sailing right along with him. The proud noble could hardly believe it. He just got swatted by a dying snake. Still, the Mo heir did not care one bit because he was certain he had secured those 500 points. The beast shrieked, thrashed violently, and finally collapsed. The battle was finally over. The giant snake had officially lost. Meanwhile, our favorite cheat kept watching, safely from his rooftop perch, completely surprised that the giant creature had actually died. Unfortunately, he had arrived a moment too late. What a massive waste, Yun was extremely disappointed. Down below, the surviving goons were already celebrating. They showered their young master with praise for basically doing absolutely nothing. He stole the kill on a half-dead snake. You have to admire that level of audacity. Young Master Mo let out a smug, arrogant laugh. That coveted first place was his now, just as he always believed it should be. A guy with absolutely zero honor or pride, matching our main character in pure, unadulterated shamelessness. The protagonist had real accomplishments. Suddenly, the beast snapped its eyes open. It turned out Snake Boy was not about to give up that easily, especially against some shameless goat. Suddenly, the beast roared, muscles flexing in pure rage as its tail swept the area, knocking people left and right. The other fighters watched in shock as the creature suffered a violent blood burst that unleashed its entire power. It was just like that wolf from before. It was almost a shame the main character could not steal its power from such a great beast, because he had already snatched the aura farming earlier. Start of the game. Now the guys were in trouble because that pseudo-monster had now evolved into a full-fledged monster, reaching a level far beyond any beast. He had turned into the kind of creature that crawled straight out of hell. The first academy students were worried, wondering if they even had the guts to chase after a monster, but here is the catch: monsters went for a whopping 1,000 points. The boys were absolutely stunned by this news. The blood burst would only last so long, making it a golden chance to take down the monster and score enough points to land on the front page of the news. The students charged forward. Their attacks had left the monster incredibly weak and vulnerable. They had to reach it before anyone else did, or all their efforts and sacrifices would be completely in vain. Funny enough for them, a clever thief was watching from a nearby roof. He stared down in awe. He never imagined a monster worth 1,000 points would just show up. Now that was something worth stealing. Unfortunately for those exhausted students who had been struggling for hours, our thief was way faster than them. Jotun unlocked his speed talent, boosting it to the maximum to make his theft even sweeter. He dropped into a runner's stance, eyes locked on the target. Immediately, he exploded forward. Jotun rushed ahead like a force of nature, blitzing past the rubble, past the sprinting academy boys, and past the young master Mole, heading straight for an abandoned area. It was dead silent, especially for a place where a giant snake monster was supposed to be hiding. He could see no trace of the first academy bullies. Checking the ground, he found a fresh trail of viper mucus. This worked out perfectly for this neighborhood thief, if the viper was hiding in the nearby abandoned building. Then those 1,000 points would be all his, thinking these wicked thoughts. He grinned with excitement. The giant 1,000-point beast was in desperate need of a wash. That was a pretty disappointing realization, especially for the guy who had to fight it. Still, the black-haired, gloomy dude was absolutely sure the beast was nearby, and he would catch it soon. His eyes widened in awe when he finally saw the creature's alluring shadow. The prey he hungered for was finally right there. But it was doing something odd, drinking up drops of liquid. Dripping from the ceiling of that ruined, abandoned building, there was simply no way it was drinking normal water with its final breaths, not after all the effort it took to reach this spot. The boy drew his sword, deciding to investigate that spring of life right after claiming his reward. The only goal was to take that giant head before anyone else showed up. Looking like a starved beast locked on fresh meat, Yaishin prepared his strike. He lunged forward like a tiny speck against the massive titan. The massive purple viper spotted him instantly and coiled to strike. It was already having a rough day, so it definitely hated seeing him. But Yaishin quickly realized he was not the only one holding hidden tricks. The creature moved with impossible speed, defying its colossal size. Fueled by the power of demonic goo, the snake did the unthinkable. It dodged his strike completely and launched a heavy fist at his position. The shockwave sent Yaishin flying back. This thing was a literal beast. Overreached, but his greedy nature would not let him stop. Whipping out his bow, the shameless opportunist twisted midair. He let loose a barrage of perfectly aimed arrows. Those stolen abilities really paid off as the arrows hit dead center. They pierced deep into the monster's eyes, blinding it completely. Talk about a cheap shot. Yaishin charged forward to exploit the opening. He lashed out with his sword, aiming directly for the monster's thick arm. The beast screamed in agony. Dark purple blood sprayed everywhere. But that skin was way too thick, leaving our guy in a tough spot. He only wanted to steal some easy kills, but this was becoming real work. Taking down a monster of this level demanded way too much effort. He had to wrap this up before those elite academy jerks caught up. This half-dead creature shouldn't be putting up such a brutal fight. Honestly, Yaishin had every right to feel thoroughly annoyed by now. He refused to back off, driving his heavy blade deeper into the wound. He wanted it dead. He wanted it completely dead. The viper monster absolutely hated this, letting out a piercing shriek. But Yaishin was finally in his element, keeping up the relentless pressure. His eyes flared with manic red light as he charged. He began tearing into the massive serpent without a shred of mercy. Combining his stolen speed with his stolen strength, Yaishin pushed ahead. This shameless thief was never going to win a prize for originality. But he successfully sliced right through the beast's thick hide anyway. The giant snake thrashed wildly around him, putting up a desperate struggle. Our guy landed perfectly on his feet, looking back to admire his bloody handiwork. Dealing with these high-level monsters was always an absolute nightmare. It was a massive relief that those other guys did the heavy lifting. Honestly, Yaishin had zero shame about being a total scavenger. Hey, work smarter, not harder. With the snake dead, Yaishin turned around. He wanted to check out the strange pool of water the snake wanted. This liquid definitely did not look like any ordinary fresh spring water. Not that it mattered to Yaishin, since he couldn't steal water's powers. Still, if a giant monster came all this way for a sip, it had to be good. He decided he should probably grab some for himself, just in case. Yaishin pulled out an empty bottle and prepared to scoop it up. He could deal with that later. For now, he slipped a bottle under the water source. While the bottle filled, he rushed over to carve up the viper. He treated that dead beast like fresh meat. The guy was a total grave robber. But he had a plan. Taking the monster's eyeball would prove his kill. He wanted that eye as the perfect proof, a grim trophy for his collection. After all, the top monster slayer in this hunt gets the grand prize. And since heart blood was worth a fortune, he went a step further. He decided to drain the heart too. Our guy never leaves money on the table. Seriously, the kid will loot absolutely anything if it makes him richer. He would probably skin the beast too, if his bag had enough room. Luckily, the magical water he collected was already a pretty decent amount. He did not want anyone catching him and realizing the water was important. Even though he did not know its secrets yet, he felt highly confident. He would figure it out eventually. Either way, he had to keep it safe. There was absolutely no way he was letting Master Mo touch this rare liquid. Sure, he was a thief, but he was still better than Master Mo. To play it safe, he destroyed the fountain so nobody else could use it. Talk about a ruthless play, but those stolen points easily secured him first place. With his top spot locked down, it was finally time to make an exit. Our guy might be greedy, but he always knew exactly when to cash out. Wearing a pretty smug smile, he packed his gear and quietly slipped away. Soon, Master Mo and his battered team finally caught up to the monster. They were horrified to find its eyes gone and its heart completely drained. Absolutely nothing remained of the beast except for its useless, mangled corpse. A pale henchman nervously turned to Master Mo, asking what to do next. Meanwhile, Master Mo was physically shaking, practically foaming at the mouth. He could not believe someone had actually stolen his long-awaited trophy. He screamed in rage, swearing to brutally destroy whoever did this to him. Honestly, watching Master Mo lose his mind like this is pure comedy. Meanwhile, our guy used the chaos to sneak away like an assassin. Stalking through the shadows, he carefully kept tabs on his furious enemies. The last thing he wanted was to get jumped by the First Academy. Getting robbed by the exact guy he just scammed would be pretty tragic indeed. His followers tried to calm him down, guessing the thief was hiding. But that did not make Master Mo feel any better, not even close. Now the First Academy faced a pretty massive problem on how to proceed. They lost the giant beast, with zero clues on who took their loot. Master Mo was beyond furious, ordering his goons to hunt everyone down. They had to search every single suspect to find that shameless thief. Returning home in absolute disgrace was not an option for them. They would not let some random student run away with their hard work. His men fanned out, hunting for anyone carrying a suspicious heavy pack. Our guy needed to lie pretty low for a while, no exceptions. Using his crazy speed, our guy vanished into the gloomy night. The creep leaps away from the group, desperate to put distance between them. Between himself and those absolute bullies who were dying to beat him down, they would. Find out eventually, of course, especially if he actually managed to turn in the eyes and grab 1,000 points. Once those scores were finally added up, everyone would know he was the thief who swiped all their hard-earned gains. So for now, with the limited time he had left, he needed to hide and keep leveling up. That way he could fight back when they came for revenge. Fortunately, Tian found a decent hiding spot and wondered how much stronger he would get from drinking monster blood. The guy barely had 2 seconds of peace, yet he was already considering chugging down some highly illegal liquids. He grabbed the vial of blood he collected and choked it right down. In any other story, he would suffer terrible demonic consequences for playing around with these bizarre, dangerous chemicals. Absolutely wild. But luckily for our resident thief, he is the main character. All he had to complain about was how incredibly foul and nasty the blood actually tasted. Honestly, drinking venomous, hideous monster blood is just a terrible experience. Still, that awful choking was a pretty small price to pay to get some real courage and gain the strength needed to protect his precious little sister. He claimed that was his very last experiment, but then he immediately started chugging down more monster blood. Like it was some premium energy juice. It was honestly nauseating to watch, and his sister back home probably felt a sudden shiver, knowing her brother was up to no good and using her as his excuse. Seriously, he really needed to give her a break. To stop with all this reckless nonsense, well, after taking another massive risk, the thief finally started to feel those heavy cultivation gains flooding right through him. He was completely amazed. It was everything he ever wanted and more. The boy stared in total shock as his training speed spiked by nearly 4 times. No wonder Chen Dong and those other guys were getting so powerful so quickly. It seems that besides having raw talent, chugging dangerous illegal substances is standard practice. To get those insane power gains, he was ready to train his absolute hardest. With the mere 2.5 days he had left before the deadline, and that is exactly what he did. He stayed hidden in that secret spot, working hard to grow. As strong as possible, 3 days later, students were already pouring out of the dangerous forbidden zone, turning in their monster materials at the registration desk. The staff got busy tallying up the scores and announcing their points. That is when our local Aura farmer showed up, happily slamming his heavy bag right onto the counter, eagerly asking the instructor to check his total score. Naturally, the instructor sorted through the smelly bag of disgusting monster remains and announced that Lian Xing scored 195 points, the other. Students were completely stunned by how incredibly impressive his score was. Then, Master Mo showed up, absolute arrogance written all over his face. He scoffed. Claiming those pathetic points did not deserve an ounce of praise, he smirked, mocking his rival and laughing that the long-haired weakling was simply not qualified to challenge him without even hitting 200 points. Our Aura farmer glared with absolute hatred, but the smug bully wanted the official scoreboard. To do the talking, he demanded that the instructor count his points and emptied his all those disgusting items piled on her desk. It was absolutely foul. The teacher stared in total disbelief at the massive number of points he had somehow gathered. She announced that the kid had scored over 400 points. It looked impressive, but his goons had clearly done all the heavy lifting. He was just a pampered bully. The entire crowd stood there in absolute shock. The gap in the scores was massive, especially since most students barely scraped by. With double digits, Lai Yun Shang easily guessed this pampered brat had stolen those points from others, and the bully did not even deny it. He just laughed, claiming he took everything using his own abilities, and insisted there was nothing wrong with stealing in a game with no rules against it. It was pretty hilarious for Mu to boast like that because he was about to learn he was far from the biggest thief in the room. The noble Aura farmer cursed the bully while a group of suckups rushed to congratulate the young Master Mu, showering him with praises and promising him an easy victory. He smirked, bragging that first place belonged to him unless someone scored over 1,000 points, which would make them his next target. The bystanders gasped, wondering how anyone could possibly reach 1,000 points. Every living student should have emerged from the exam by now, even the teachers. Snidely muttered that the remaining kids were probably dead. They were pretty corrupt teachers who only valued raw power, meaning Mashui would easily take first place in the exam. They seemed thrilled about his victory, even. This academy was completely built on nepotism, but they were not about to get away with it so easily. A final contestant suddenly stepped forward and every eye in the room locked onto him. The proctor gasped in shock, but there really was one last student. Our favorite dark-haired misfit appeared from the shadows like a demon, marching forward to claim his prize. Jotun dumped his loot right before the teacher, who gasped at the sight. Staring down at severed beast eyeballs, sharp fangs from the wolves he hunted, and the eyes of a monster, the teacher stared in absolute disbelief, unable to comprehend how such a massive haul came from an unknown nobody. The kid simply asked for his points to be announced, and it was 1,163 points, by reaping where others had sown. He snatched first place in this year's practical exam. His rewards were 3 bottles of monster blood and 100,000 yuan. Man, it was music to his ears, and he grabbed the prize without a single care. He felt zero shame for stealing back from a bunch of thieves. His senior had made it out alive with his squad, cheering happily for his junior for getting this far. Looning stood perplexed, wondering how the kid could possibly pull off such an insane stunt. He had no idea he was just dealing with another shameless thief. Of course, Mashalb was deeply interested in this thief, cursing when he realized the boy was from the 5th Academy lowlives. He was incredibly heated and immediately ordered his people to run background check and uncover everything there was to know about him. This could get dangerous incredibly fast, but Jotun had absolutely nothing to worry about. No one cares about that right now, with his crew busy celebrating their massive victory. They never expected the 5th Academy to shine, let alone take home a win. It is an incredible moment, but the teacher looks like he is chewing on broken glass. He is not even trying to hide his absolute disgust for anyone who looks average. Instead, a twisted grin spreads across his face, feeding on the coming chaos. The quiet underdog just crossed a line, deeply angering the powerful Mo clan. They are an incredibly powerful, ruthless clan who absolutely live for brutal, bloody revenge. The teacher is practically betting the kid will end up dead in a ditch. The senior disciple's stomach knots up, silently praying his junior survives this mess. Hoping for the best, they check the final leaderboard to scope out the rewards. Turns out, the arrogant Master Mo is walking away with 2nd place. The catch is that the top 3 winners must stand together on stage. They must stand together. Whoever designed this rule loves pure chaos. Pure chaos, yet our main man keeps his cool. Yeon flashes a rare, genuine smile as the cheering crowd surrounds the stage. But under the applause, Master Mo leans in to threaten our favorite thief. He warns him he is dead meat for stealing. Yeon just smirks. The kid is utterly shameless, firing back with a heavy dose of sharp, cold mockery. He won't take trash talk from another cheater. Meanwhile, Lai Yuning steps in. He immediately targets Master Mo, throwing his own hypocritical, arrogant words right back at him. He reminds him that stealing points is totally fine if you have the skills. Stop crying foul now, you are both playing the same dirty game. Master Mo finds that hilarious because in his world, only nobles get to steal. The poor robbing the rich, forbidden. The bully demands to know who is stronger. He wants to settle this with blood, proving who the superior thief really is. This challenge actually fires up our resident thief's blood. He is itching to crush Master Mo, which visibly rattles the arrogant noble. The guy's refusal to submit makes the bully boil, their eyes lock. Sparks fly, the toxic young master narrows his eyes, locking onto his target. He is completely locked on Yeon, refusing to let him escape without a fight. When a psycho like Moha targets you, running is useless. The only real option is to face the threat head-on and fight. He must grow powerful enough so this arrogant weakling never dares challenge him. With that settled, life finally goes back to normal after the chaotic tournament. Our young thief heads straight back home to the sister he cherishes most. She immediately sprints into his arms, putting a genuine smile on his face. But the sweet moment ends fast as she bombards him with questions. She has this nagging gut feeling that her brother was out causing massive trouble. Her tiny hands frantically check him over for any wounds or fresh bruises. He laughs it off, assuring her he is fine before pulling out some gifts. Her eyes light up with pure curiosity as he reaches into his bag. He dumps a pile of incredible treasures onto the table, leaving her completely stunned. She looks at the massive haul, knowing this stuff costs an absolute fortune. She jokingly teases that his broke self can finally afford to marry and leave her. He is highly offended. He didn't risk his life just to get kicked out. He could never get married, not with his massive sister complex. All of his money was reserved for Yeu, she gasped, asking if they could finally eat meat every single day. Then she held up a bottle of the highly suspicious water he had collected. Wondering what it actually was, Yitian admitted he had no clue himself, so he bought an illustrated treasure book. Yehu was amazed and eager to check it out. He figured a picture guide was best so they would not mix up their loot. With that, the two siblings flipped open the book to search for their mystery item. Yi Tian froze in pure shock when his eyes finally landed on it. It was the legendary Terakar elixir, a rare rock formed deep within the earth. It absorbs the primordial Kai of heaven and earth for hundreds of years. Consuming it can massively upgrade a person's cultivation talent. But here is the catch: it only works for mid-tier talents and below. To boost high-tier talents, they would need a legendary terrestrial stone instead. This made Yi Tian realize how that greedy snakeback then became such a monster. He must have used this very elixir, now that Yi Tian held this treasure. He was ready to build an unstoppable path to the top. His sweet sister handed the elixir back, urging him to take it for himself. Since it boosts talents, she believed it would finally help her struggling brother. She still thought he was a weakling who needed every bit of help he could get. Little did she know, her brother was now an elite thief doing incredibly well. He did not need the elixir. Instead, he wanted his sister to have it. He wanted her to get stronger. She had to drink it and fast. Yi Tian had already provoked some terrifying enemies, and he refused to let her suffer. Yehu was completely stunned by her brother's sudden demand in the middle of their quiet talk. In the quiet evening following their grueling battle, she stared at him in disbelief. He usually kept his weird habit of drinking suspicious things to himself. But now he was practically forcing her to swallow this mystery liquid. She had not even awakened her abilities yet, but he already knew her potential. The sooner she began her cultivation, the safer she would be in this world. He was not going to stand by and watch his sister get hurt. Yi Tian knew he could not protect her 24/7. She had to learn self-defense. She needed to survive long enough for him to arrive whenever trouble found her. Besides, wasting such a prime elixir on himself made absolutely no sense. He already had countless cheat methods to increase his own power. His sweet sister, Yehu, possessed an unawakened elementary frost talent. Since her innate talent was low tier, this elixir would guarantee a massive boost. He was not sure exactly how strong she would get, but any boost was crucial. Something was infinitely better than leaving her defenseless in this harsh world. As he weighed his options, Yehu suddenly smiled with a bright idea. She suggested selling the elixir, convinced they could fetch an absolute fortune for it. Yi Tian barely resisted the urge to smack her head with the bottle. He went through hell to harvest this treasure, not to flip it for cash. Besides, the book mentioned a terrestrial stone could be hidden near the elixir. Since he had already destroyed the cave, selling the liquid without the stone was risky. Greedy buyers would easily scam them. In the end, they had only one choice. They would only try to kill him to get that stupid stone. His sister said it was. A shame he destroyed it, but since it was gone, she should hurry up and drink that elixir before someone else stole it to get powerful, if she did. Not drink the elixir, it would be an even bigger shame, and she was already being dramatic about it. Her brother was ready to force that power down her throat by himself. The girl shrieked that her brother was killing her, but he had no plans of stopping. He asked her how it tasted, and she immediately spat. That it was gross. Well, beggars could not be choosers, and that power should start kicking in pretty soon. The energy flooding through her felt strangely warm and comfortable, completely surprising her. Meanwhile, her brother watched closely with his judging red eyes, wondering what was happening. Her cultivation level was pretty low, so she should be upgrading right about now. He expected her upgrade to involve her rolling on the floor and writhing in agony like an expiring donkey, which was exactly how he looked during his own breakthroughs. Instead, she just yawned, feeling sleepy, and planned to make some dinner after a quick nap. He told her not to worry and urged her to go rest, as other methods had him screaming like he was giving birth, while she simply went to sleep. Honestly, the sheer unfairness of the world was suffocating. Still, the boy kept watching his sister, wondering why the elixir had not taken full Effect yet, an hour later, the boy sat by his sister, carefully cultivating his own power. He was so worried about her that he actually remained in the room. Honestly, stealing that aura farming power was easily his best move yet. He was emitting some incredibly massive waves of talent aura. Suddenly, the boy turned around and noticed his sister was literally glowing. Her talent had jumped straight from low tier to mid tier. Even though her novice power was still not awake, the boy could barely believe it. His little sister had climbed 2 entire tiers, shooting straight past novice, a mid-tier cultivation talent combined with her rare frost talent was ridiculously impressive. His cute little sister was definitely going to become a top-ranking martial warrior, and he was eager to see it. He needed to calm down first and get her properly trained to use those powers. Still, he was absolutely thrilled and ready for Mo Zio to bring on his challenge. There was no way he would lose to that greedy pig. The evening went on after that crazy day, and he kept busy chugging down some highly suspicious liquid. It was actually the monster blood he won from the competition. Honestly, this stuff tasted way worse than that last green. When he drank, he quickly grabbed a handful of peanuts to wash down the taste and get his mouth back to normal, wondering how much his cultivation speed would actually improve after drinking the blood of a mid-rank monster. He activated his body training technique to watch his aura gather around him in waves, filling up the entire room and showing off some serious raw dominance. His energy was circulating almost 8 times faster now. It was pretty wild that he got this level of power from just mid-rank monster blood. Now he craved even more blood so he could break through to the martial warrior realm in a single month. Talk about greedy. Sadly, there were only 2 bottles of that premium blood left in his possession. He was going to exploit this advantage to the absolute limit, training and cultivating without rest. He put in immense effort, but still wondered how he could get more powerful beast blood. Meanwhile, 10 days later, deep in the quiet woods of the 5th Academy, Yetin was sitting calmly under the trees, cultivating amidst the peaceful nature. He looked almost like a Disney princess, completely having the absolute time of his life. But that peace shattered when his senior came running, huffing and puffing in panic. Yetin calmly asked what the emergency was, while the breathless senior just gasped for air. Yetin stood up. Had Mosha finally arrived? No, that was not the issue. The bully had gone into deep seclusion, desperately trying to push past his limits. He was attempting to break through to the martial warrior realm, which explained his absence. His senior warned there was a terrifying reason why that jerk had not tormented them yet. Mosha wanted to become a full martial warrior, first to guarantee his brutal revenge. Fine, Mosha was a problem for later, but what was wrong right now? Yetin just laughed. Why bother worrying about a guy locked away in seclusion? Why worry about a guy in seclusion who was not even here to challenge him? He had already analyzed the bully's talents, and a breakthrough would take a month. Still, his senior remained absolutely terrified, shaking with fear at the mere thought. He kept barking warnings. If Mosha succeeded, they were dead meat. Squashed like ants, but Yetin just looked bored, completely unfazed. He told the senior to let him try. It was not like he was just sitting around. He had not spent all this time just daydreaming under the sun. Yetin was training hard too, but his senior insisted that Mosha's family was immensely rich. Normal cultivators simply could not compete with that level of wealth and influence. Even those 3 bottles of monster blood might not give him enough power to defeat Mosha. Seriously, this guy was just an endless storm of pure panic. He was a walking negativity poster board, which was honestly getting pretty ridiculous. Yetin just laughed, admitting that he had already used up all that monster blood. His pessimistic friend immediately promised to bury him and take care of his sister. Currently, all Yetin had left was the low-rank viper blood and its heart blood. Once he fully absorbed those, he could likely reach the advanced apprentice rank. That was a solid jump, but still not enough to defeat Mosha. Close but not enough. Even a tiny step from the warrior realm was a wall. He still needed one final, crucial piece to complete his breakthrough. No choice then, he had held back from stealing for so long. But now it was time to hunt down and devour someone's talent again. If he combined his current speed with a top-tier sword talent, he would easily have the strength to face a true martial warrior. His eyes gleamed with a quiet resolve, mentally preparing for the coming clash. Meanwhile, inside the Mo estate, their young heir remained hidden behind a massive door. Sealed so tightly, it looked as if he had buried himself alive inside. Boom, the massive door suddenly shattered to pieces as Mo Sha emerged. He emerged a completely changed man, with his powers cultivated to their absolute limits. His bodyguard immediately dropped to his knees to worship his terrifying young master, eagerly congratulating him on successfully breaking through to the martial warrior realm. Mo Sha stood there, muscles bulging with a sinister aura as the servant chanted long live. The wicked young master is back. Inside the Mo estate, a demonic bully finally emerges. He crashes out of his cultivation chamber as an absolute terror. His blonde butler is thrilled, ecstatic to congratulate him. Moha reached the martial warrior realm, feeding his massive ego. Servants quickly dress his hulking, massive physique in nearby robes. Everyone bows down. He has finally finished his training. His father definitely heard the entire training chamber crumble. Only his wild son could cause this much chaos. The breakthrough is done. He stands proud, a true martial warrior. Naturally, Moan, the head of the Mo clan, is absolutely thrilled. He is the ultimate enabler behind his son's toxic attitude. In short, he is a total monster who has massive wealth. He also sits comfortably as one of the 10 grand elders in their faction. He praises his son, who proudly flexes his muscles. He claims their legendary ancestor will surely reward him now. The kid is a spoiled brat, but he shows respect. He drops to his knees, thanking his father for all the resources poured into him. Since his training is over, a massive feast is finally ready for him. But the young master wants to pick out his own menu. His father tells him to feast, and Moha promises he will. Now get this, the second his overbearing father leaves, everything changes. Moha immediately asks his blonde butler if that secret task is finally completed. This was the hit job ordered right before entering training. The guards smirk and immediately lay out the latest gossip. They have gathered all the juicy rumors they could find on their target, Yayin. The orphan has no family, no allies, and no backing. A worthless nobody stands zero chance against massive wealth. Since Yayin has nobody in his corner, Moha plans to destroy him. Honestly, the target is so pathetic that Moha is not even motivated. He does not want to waste his own time on a peasant. Instead, he decides to just hire a quick assassin to end him. But the butler is worried, since they are back in civilized territory. Murdering someone without a solid reason could bring heat to their family name. The young master sneers. There is no need to make a scene. He will not drag his family reputation through the mud just to dispose of garbage. A professional shadow assassin can easily handle this quietly without leaving any trace. Still, those elite contract killers are expensive, costing at least 1 million yuan. The butler wonders if a broke nobody is even worth that price. Moha laughs at his servant for still thinking like a simple peasant. In a region as massive as Linhai, only a dozen families rule. Everyone else is merely a servant waiting to be crushed underfoot. This is exactly how the wealthy keep their absolute power secure. Whenever a rare genius rises from the mud, they must eliminate them. Allowing a peasant underdog to grow strong would threaten their entire long-lasting dynasty. That is why they absolutely must use any brutal method to erase him. The man laughed wickedly, claiming the academy was never meant for talent. Instead, it was a trap for the strong to prey on the weak. A completely useless, trash-tier school in every possible way imaginable. Thank goodness our guy's sister did not go there. This world is brutal. The strong always take advantage of the weak, while goodness gets ignored. Instead, the worst elements get all the power. That is just reality. Meanwhile, deep inside the Academy forest, our favorite princess-style scammer is training hard. He is pushing his limits, recently upgrading his look to a proper prince. That means far less meditating and way more aggressive sword swinging. A literal demon is actively hunting him down, so slacking off is absolutely out of the question. He has to be completely ready for when the Mo family comes to end him. Just like he told Fatty, Yeshin is not waiting around to be caught helpless. He has honed his sword skills to a terrifyingly sharp, brutal edge. Now he is easily slicing massive boulders like paper, but the show must pause. The massive storm rolling in is about to seriously cramp his style. Time to head home, so the boy steps out onto the quiet streets. He walks without an umbrella, partly out of pride, partly from being broke. After walking for quite some time, he suddenly stops dead in his tracks. He senses a strange, dark shift in the atmosphere around him. Right on top of a power pole, a weird status screen suddenly materializes. It is bizarre for a screen to pop up there, especially with nobody around. But Yeshin's unique senses are incredibly sharp when it comes to danger. His greedy ability literally hungers for other talents, acting like a perfect radar. He can instantly tell when powerful, high-tier fighters are lurking nearby. And right now, someone hiding up on that pole has a rare shadow talent. They are actively tailing him. Let's see how he handles this. Up above, the assassin quickly realizes his target has already spotted him. So he leaps from the high pole, wanting to get this job over with. Moving like lightning, they clash. Yeshin blocks the lethal strike. Their blades lock, both of them testing each other's raw strength. What a cheap shot, attacking a guy on his quiet walk home. They bounce back to get some distance, and Yeshin goes full dark mode. He questions the stranger, but this bro is paid to keep his mouth shut. The quiet killer barely speaks a word, only cold-bloodedly muttering that he came for Yeshin's life. Honestly, this guy is seriously ugly. Messy hair, terrible teeth, the works. He is literally wearing dirty bandages for clothes. His fashion sense is completely dead. The only decent thing about him is that cool, inky shadow coat. And maybe his massive sword. Meanwhile, the rain keeps pouring down. It would be a terrible time to fight an opponent with lightning powers. Luckily, this weird, snake-like creep has a completely different element. He just quietly introduces himself as the very man sent to end Yeshin's life. It is pretty easy to believe him, since he definitely does not look like a regular citizen. Yeshin immediately guesses that this creep was hired directly by Mo Shah. He is actually offended that Mo Shah did not have the guts to show up himself. Instead, the coward sent an ugly hitman to do his dirty work. Sending an assassin with such an underhanded tactic was honestly just embarrassing. The shadow assassin lunged forward, cutting through the air practically invisible. He charged toward the young thief with absolute, deadly focus in his eyes. He fully believed he was about to end him, but yet just felt second-hand embarrassment. Honestly, he was mostly annoyed with the Moyang clan for going through all this trouble. Imagine dispatching a high-level killer for this, yet drew his blade and deflected the strike. He easily pushed the guy back. This assassin was admittedly a tricky opponent. The coward kept vanishing and reappearing, popping up from different angles. That stealth technique was incredibly handy, making him a nightmare to track down. It is always a pain to trade blows with someone you cannot even see. And there he is again, a sneaky blade aimed right at Yet's back. Not happening, Yet quickly steps back to dodge the near miss. All right, so maybe it's finally time to take this guy seriously. Now it was his turn to strike. He had already figured out the killer's rhythm. Having analyzed his movement, Yet was fully prepared to execute a perfect counter. The two lunged at each other, locking eyes as a fierce gale whipped around them. The shadow assassin smirked as Yet launched his strike, but his confidence was misplaced. The blow seemed to connect, but once the dust settled, the coward had vanished again. Imagine hunting someone down only to run away the second things got a bit tough. Honestly, this vanishing trick would be a massive headache for any ordinary fighter. Too bad for him, our boy is anything but ordinary these days. He easily matched the assassin's speed, tracking his shadow and preparing a counter. He swung his blade in a clean sweep, almost ending the fight right there. It was annoying how slippery this green snake assassin turned out to be. Luckily, the strike connected, forcing the masked loser to spit up a mouthful of blood. Watching your enemies crash into the dirt is always a satisfying sight. The trembling killer coughed, unable to comprehend how his stealth had been breached. He could not accept that a mere kid was completely outclassing an elite martial warrior. Before he took his last breath, he desperately needed to know how Yet tracked him. Standing over him, the boy offered a teasing smirk, asking if he was truly curious. Fine, but Yet wants to know who ordered the hit first. The killer nodded in agreement, but it was just a pathetic, desperate distraction. He secretly reached for a hidden weapon while trying to keep Yet talking. He hissed that he would talk once the brat was taking his very last breath. He lunged forward with everything he had, desperate to secure a surprise kill. Yet easily read the path of the thrown blade, dodging the weapon effortlessly. He charged forward to end this once and for all, showing zero hesitation in battle. When it is time to get his hands dirty, our boy does not hold back. The tragic hitman came to collect a bounty, only to get absolutely packed up instead. Game over, this entire hit was just a humiliating failure. He lay there in total disbelief, having never been outmatched by a mere child. Still, Yet was not about to let this slide without getting some proper answers first. If he was going to extract perfect revenge, he needed the exact names. So he asked the dying man once more who had ordered the hit. The assassin chuckled, praising the kid for being the strongest martial apprentice he had ever faced. Drawing his final ragged breath, the assassin confessed that Mo Zio ordered the hit. He slumped to the ground, dead. Fortunately, Yon did not need to worry about hiding the corpse. The local authorities would typically handle situations like this anyway. Besides, it was purely self-defense. Yon stood quietly over the lifeless body, his expression dark with focused energy since he already knew how to extract full value from a defeated foe. Then, looking up at the rainy sky, he angrily shouted Mozio's name. At least he now knew exactly who wanted him dead, which honestly brought him some welcome peace. But even now, his endless greed instantly flared up. He wanted more. Yon leaned down to make physical contact with the lifeless body, instantly copying that shadow talent. Such an incredible skill was too good to ignore. He had waited an entire month for a massive opportunity like this. Now, this ruthless kid grew even more dangerous as the shadow energy fused with his soul. How could he ever turn down a stealthy skill that made him look incredibly awesome? Now that Yon had successfully claimed the power of the dark shadows, his shadow prowess spiked, an 80% increase easy. He truly looked like a shadow warrior. Yon possessed mid-tier cultivation, novice speed talent, mid-tier blade mastery, and now a novice-level shadow ability. He secretly wanted to thank Mozio for sending such a useful sacrifice. But finders keepers, it was pouring heavily when the thief robbed the shadow. Assassin of his gear, Yon was completely ruthless, showing absolutely zero mercy. To add insult to injury, he even decided to hide the evidence. The kid was out here. Covering his tracks, he sealed the unconscious assassin under a heavy pile of rubble, happily hiding him away. To Yon, a strong warrior should never be satisfied with being tossed around by the merciless wind and rain. Just like a drifting leaf, he caught one in his hand just to look cool. Our hero swore that he would live his life with absolute pride. In a world like this, he would become the fierce wind itself, never a helpless fallen leaf. Yon was getting surprisingly philosophical right after hiding a fresh body. Everyone has their own coping mechanism. he flashed a sly grin and headed back home, feeling extremely satisfied with taking care of that annoying pest. He felt so good that he took a nice long shower to wash away the physical tension from his muscles after his intense battle. Once he got dressed, he casually showed off his toned abs, proving he was the real deal. It felt incredibly relaxing to sink into the comfortable sofa as his mind settled. At ease, the two blades he had grabbed were actual primordial weapons. Defeating the assassin was not enough, so he looted his weapons too. Once a thief, always a thief. Yon could not help but smile. His old blade was completely shattered. But these new weapons looked highly impressive. He might as well just add them to his growing collection. He had also completely cleaned out the poor assassin's pockets, taking everything. He found gold cards worth a cool 1,000,000, silver cards worth 100,000, totaling 3.5 million. Yon laughed with absolute delight, thanks to the arrogant fool who sent an assassin after him. He was suddenly rich and ready to put every single coin to excellent use. Now he is cashing out, promising to make the absolute best use of them. He shamelessly stuffed all that stolen loot straight into his pockets. Suddenly he froze when he spotted an intriguing book mixed in with the stolen loot. It looked like a training manual for the Shadow Blades. This was getting interesting, a bronze rank blade technique, to be exact. That was a massive step up from the usual basic skills, real quality stuff. Mastery of this would unlock the true potential of his blade talent, and that was exactly what he needed. Excited, he wanted to learn it immediately. Talk about irony, it seemed like Mashabi had literally just delivered free gifts to him. Yatain wasted no time and began studying the manual, focusing deeply on reading Chapter 1. Rain poured outside while he focused, but then his eyes shot wide open. Something felt off. The entire apartment was completely silent. Nobody else was home. It was getting late, and his little sister was still missing. She was never late, and since Mashabi already sent an assassin after him, that ruthless bastard definitely had all his personal details, including the fact he had a younger sister, which meant one terrifying thing. His sister was a target. Yatain was absolutely not letting that happen. He scrambled to his feet, bolting out the door like a madman to find his sister. Sprinting through the storm, he prayed she was safe. Please let you be okay. Meanwhile, in the middle of the downtown district, Yatain practically crashed down like a falling meteor at her school. He did not care if people thought he was insane. Finding Yu was everything. Scanning the crowds of students leaving the building, he searched desperately for her face. Nothing. He had run out without even putting on shoes. Talk about an extreme sister complex. Driven by pure panic, the boy pushed forward, scanning every corner, his mind racing with terrible thoughts. Where could she be? He searched high and low for her. Normally, assassins would not dare attack a school filled with regular students. Martial rules protected them, but a scumbag like Mashabi would never respect the laws of warriors. He was far too shameless. Honestly, the guy made Yatain look like a saint. Suddenly, he froze as the cold tip of an umbrella pressed against his back. Just as he feared an enemy was waiting, he leaped back, completely ignoring whoever was speaking to him, and instantly closed the distance. He materialized right behind them, executing a flawless counter. Yatain was already pushed to his limit and had zero patience for games right now. Grabbing the hooded figure, he was ready to strike when she pulled it back and laughed. It was just his little sister. Talk about a heart attack. Yatain stared, utterly stunned to see her playing these dark, mysterious pranks. Thank goodness his instincts had not made him strike immediately. Still, he was furious that she had worried him, demanding to know why she was out so late. Yu just giggled, explaining she had classroom cleanup duty after school today. Then she looked him up and down, asking why he had run out with no umbrella or shoes. Honestly, he looked like a complete lunatic. Dripping wet from head to toe, he could not even begin to explain. But the overwhelming relief of seeing her safe was all that mattered. Angel chuckled, asking all about that slick move he just pulled off, but Yin just wanted her to get her fragile self home before he had a total heart attack. Being a thief is tough when you have people you genuinely care about. Meanwhile, a creepy dark figure sat parked right outside the school. Talk about terrifying. It seemed like the Mo family was actively plotting to make a move against his little sister. After all, what is worse, they just got word that their hired assassin had failed. Now Mo Show himself was here to harass Angel. The guy seriously had zero shame. To make matters worse, that bully was absolutely livid seeing Yin still alive. It was pouring rain by the time the siblings headed home, stopping along the way to grab a quick snack. Yin was having the absolute time of his life, creating sweet sibling memories like he had not literally ended a grown assassin hours ago. He asked his sister what she wanted to eat for dinner, and she immediately requested his legendary boiled pork slices. But while they enjoyed this normal sibling moment, that incredibly suspicious black car was still tailing them from a distance. There are levels to being an absolute idiot, and Yin could easily spot his creepy nemesis trailing directly behind him and his little sister. Eventually they made it back, and soon dinner was served. Angel asked her brother to come over and set the table, but his focus was completely stolen by the eyesore sitting right in their driveway. Yin looked like a deeply annoyed alpha lion watching some total loser tried to claim space on his territory. That vehicle seriously sat there without an ounce of shame. Luckily, nothing crazy went down that night, because the very next morning, Angel headed off to school completely safe and sound. She was participating in class without carrying any of that heavy trauma, and even cheerfully stood up to answer a tough question from her teacher. At least one person in this household was actually a decent student. Meanwhile, her stalker, who just happened to be her overprotective brother, hovered nearby, patrolling the school grounds like some budget brand Dark Knight. Yin refused to leave her unguarded. It had been 3 straight days, and that obnoxious black car kept showing up everywhere. Honestly, even their stalker driver had to be getting exhausted of this endless waiting. But the mere thought of these creeps trying to harm his precious little sister sent Yin into an absolute boiling rage. These guys had officially crossed the line. Just as he was gearing up to finally make a move and end this, his eyes widened. The black car was actually starting to drive off. It was pulling straight out of the driveway. Well, look at that. It seemed Mo Shou had finally tapped into his inner coward and was turning tail and running away. But as a top-tier thief, Yin knew better than to trust his wicked rival. He activated a sudden speed burst to shadow the car, making sure that spoiled rich kid was not about to stir up trouble somewhere else. Still, leaving Angel completely unprotected like this felt like a massive gamble. Yin surged across the rooftops of the drab, concrete buildings of his city, keeping his eyes locked onto the black car that had plagued them for days. Finally, the vehicle pulled over and the door swung wide open. Our boy kept a safe distance, watching Moab's favorite blonde lapdog step out. So this was where his nemesis was hiding. Yin made sure to utilize his newly stolen shadow abilities, keeping him completely invisible to their eyes. Mo had no idea he was being watched, which was perfect. After 3 long days of with relentless, non-stop stalking, Yatin was finally ready to settle this score once and for all. But inside the crumbling building, a brutal, blood-spattered beatdown was already underway. Inside, a gang of thugs was relentlessly thrashing some poor, helpless debtor. The poor man was completely out of time and cash, desperately begging Mo for mercy. He pleaded for just a little more time to work and make the cash. But Mo was not interested in hearing any of his desperate excuses. He threatened the trembling man, warning him that his entire debt would double by tonight. If he did not cough up the gold today, he was going to be completely ruined. Mo looked bulkier now, packed with muscles and talking way more trash than before. The guy was incredibly rich, yet he still enjoyed tormenting the helpless. The terrified victim kept begging for his life, crying that the interest was too high. But he should have known better than to borrow cash from a literal devil. He had sick parents and young babies to feed, but pity did not exist here. Before Mo could finish the debtor off, his henchmen suddenly returned. They were still looking for the assassin Yatin had already buried. The thugs explained that they had been trying to call his phone with zero luck. The hired killer had vanished completely, taking all of his gear with him. This was the exact proof Yatin needed. Mo had truly sent an assassin. Now Mo was completely losing his mind over it, because he absolutely hated being scammed. In his mind, it was perfectly fine for him to ruin other lives. Honestly, the audacity of this guy is unreal. Nobody got away with stealing from him. Seething with rage, Mo started brutally taking his anger out on the debtor. The poor guy was completely helpless, unable to fight back or even escape. Mo was relentlessly stomping on him with his sharp, expensive shoes like an absolute madman. Seeing this terrifying display, his blonde henchman began to sweat in pure panic. He knew that if his master ever got angry, he would be next. The blonde immediately began to stutter, swearing that he would never dream of betraying his boss. He insisted that the assassin had simply vanished without a single trace. Meanwhile, Mo had successfully beaten the poor debtor to his very death. But the ruthless boss did not care about the money anymore. He wanted Yeyu targeted. He ordered the innocent girl to be dealt with for no reason. His trembling henchman stammered that he had already outsourced the job to someone. He had entrusted the entire task to a brutal close friend who had just left prison. However, leaving things to an outsider felt like a massive mistake to him. So the blonde promised that he would personally take care of the girl. The servant kept desperately pleading his absolute loyalty, but Mo was not even listening to him. Instead, the unhinged boss suddenly lashed out, hitting his servant in the chest. The blonde dropped to his knees, gasping for air in absolute burning pain. He had no idea why he was being punished, while Mo simply grinned with utter malice. The boss sneered that this was a lesson for not completing the job. Watching them fight was fine for Yatin, but targeting his innocent sister. That crossed a major line. The protective brother immediately summoned his weapon in a silent rage. He leaped straight at Mo, while the tyrant was completely focused on his servant. Using his dark shadow powers, Yatin caught the wealthy bully off guard and sliced. He looked down at him with a wicked, devilish grin of pure satisfaction. The young Mo master was lying on the cold ground covered in blood while his entire squad completely panicked. They screamed in terror, shouting out that someone had actually killed their young master. It was hard to believe an absolute monster like him could die this easily. The blonde butler instantly recognized the shadow assassin ability and assumed that Likun had arrived to assassinate their young master, but they were dead wrong about that. This was actually Yetin, the cheerful and shameless thief who had come to end the lives of every single one of these bastards. The blonde butler just could not believe it. A street rat like him should never possess the shadow talent. Unfortunately for them, this supposed loser possessed plenty of dangerous tricks. The blonde cursed, spitting out that he had personally investigated the boy and found out that the thief was nothing but weak garbage. Garbage shouldn't be able to kill their highly powerful master with one single strike. It was supposed to be impossible. The blonde also demanded to know where that ugly little assassin had gone. Even the killer's name was no help, but Yetin had absolutely no intention of answering any questions as he lunged forward, swinging his daggers directly at the butler, who screamed that he could never be killed by trash right before getting sliced to pieces. It has to hurt being that wrong. The butler's bloody body quickly joined his master's on the floor. The Mo family had just suffered twice the humiliation. An hour cold-eyed thief wiped down his daggers because they had touched complete trash. He even threw a calling card handkerchief onto the bodies so everyone would know who cleaned up the garbage. Then he vanished. There was no way he was going to bury These bodies, unlike their usual victims, Yetin was never going to be. A defenseless sheep that these thugs could slaughter whenever they pleased. They only had themselves to blame for choosing the absolute wrong target to mess with. After styling on them, he made his exit. 1 hour later, the head of the Mo family went to check on his son who had missed their family dinner. Imagine the pure shock when he found his precious little monster lying dead alongside his entire bodyguard squad in an abandoned warehouse. What a massive embarrassment. The father trembled with absolute fury, screaming out, demanding to know who killed his boy. The little monster was dead and he went down fast. Our thief was far too smart to ever play fair. Talk about beautiful, shameless tactics. Some surviving guard members found the discarded handkerchief and brought it directly to the head of the Mo household. This made it look like a shadow assassin did it. Yetin did not even drop his own handkerchief. He was cleanly framing someone else. The father trembled, wondering what kind of monster would hire a cold-blooded shadow assassin for such a vile hit. Suddenly, the Grand Elder stepped into the ruined warehouse. This man was the great martial warrior of their clan, connected directly to the powerful Linghai base. In other words, this guy was serious trouble. The frantic master Mo rushed right over to the Grand Elder and cried out that his beloved son had been brutally murdered. His sweet but ruthless young prodigy was gone forever. It was an absolute tragedy. Since the young Mo had recently broken through, and he was on track to reach the peak of power very soon, but now that promising young talent was just a cold, lifeless corpse, the brightest hope of their entire younger generation. Completely gone. If a second martial master had emerged from their household, their influence across the Linghai base would have soared to unbelievable heights. Unfortunately, their second martial warrior had a trash attitude, and he ended up packed away like garbage. Master Mo begged that his son's death wouldn't be in vain. He demanded immediate vengeance, begging the Grand Elder to personally hunt down the killer. The Grand Elder examined a dropped handkerchief, quickly realizing a shadow assassin was involved. This meant the assailant was acting on orders from a rival family with a heavy grudge. Now they had to narrow down which wealthy, powerful household would pull such a stunt. Holding the cloth up toward the sunlight, the Grand Elder spotted a hidden detail. She instantly traced the mark back to the Shadow Fang sect, and they were going down. Those poor fools were about to take the fall. Meanwhile, the chaotic Yetian wanted to check up on the chaotic fallout of his own incredibly reckless behavior. The Iron Fang base was a massive stronghold, far stronger than their local Linhai base. In fact, the Mo family's Grand Elder suspected active collusion between the two regions. She believed traitors inside Linhai were working hand in hand with the Iron Fang. Their goal was apparently to wipe out all the local young prodigies first. Once the elite youths were gone, they would easily conquer the entire Linhai base. Gossip claimed they assassinated young master Mo right after he reached the martial warrior realm. Our main character was the actual killer, of course, but he was keeping quiet. Honestly, he felt pretty proud about taking down that arrogant loser anyway. Fortunately, not a single soul knew the truth, meaning he was still completely in the clear. After all, Yetian was next on the dead young master's hit list anyway. So having someone else pack him up first was a pretty convenient coincidence. Talk about perfect timing, some might say it is almost too perfect. Our shameless protagonist had deliberately left Lai Kun's handkerchief at the scene. It was a very simple trick to deflect blame onto the Shadow Fang clan. But somehow, Grand Elder Mo discovered the Iron Fang symbol printed on it instead. Now Yetian wondered if he had accidentally stumbled into their secret plans. Then again, maybe another faction was just trying to spark a war between bases. Now that would make things very interesting for everyone involved. Either way, none of this political drama was his problem right now. Until it actually threatened him, he was just going to keep training. Yetian rolled out of bed, stretched, and did some quick muscle flexing. He grabbed his gear, getting ready to head out for some serious training. But before he could leave, his little sister stopped him with a grin. She teased him, asking where her scheming brother was sneaking off to so early. He laughed it off, explaining that he needed to head into the wild. With danger looming on the horizon, he had to get stronger as fast as possible. You can feel the tension building, and his sister felt it too. She was shocked since he had only returned home a couple of days ago. She playfully suggested that he actually go spend some time with real friends. Too bad he was a total loner, whose only friend was a chubby informant. He brushed off her worries, gently telling her to just wait at home. With Master Mo's threat out of the picture, she was finally safe alone. Yet she could still feel an ominous weight hanging in the air. Suddenly she wrapped him in a tight, desperate hug, refusing to let go. She begged him to promise he would return safely from this dangerous wild trip. Since she asked so nicely, he promised he would definitely make it back. With the sweet lies out of the way, Yatin headed straight for the wasteland. An empty wasteland, rumored to hide dangerous beasts. High-level monsters lurked here, perfect for satisfying his absolute urge to hunt. Still, with his current strength, low-tier monsters were his limit. But today, Yatin was willing to do whatever it took to level up. He wanted to become a martial warrior, yet his training was quickly interrupted. An sudden tremor shook the ground, almost like nature itself was protesting. But this was no earthquake, it was an ugly, massive pig beast. Oddly enough, it had an incredibly fabulous hairdo that looked surprisingly stylish. This beast was an armored ox, a rather strange name for this monster. It stood shirtless with bright red skin, possessing a low-tier defense talent. This was exactly what Yatin wanted, making him grin with sheer satisfaction. He wondered if the beast noticed him, but the answer came immediately. The giant creature turned and charged right at him with insane speed. That was perfectly fine, because Yatin was already tossing his bag aside. This beast clearly had some serious anger issues, charging forward with blind rage. Intent on trampling him to pieces, it kicked up dust, but Yatin leaped high. He summoned his stolen, sharp blades midair, preparing to strike with full force. Spinning with demonic grace, Yatin descended like a predator ready to claim his prize. He tried to pierce straight through the monster's powerful, defensive shield. For a low-tier beast, this defensive armor was surprisingly tough to crack. They clashed violently, sparks flying as they struggled for absolute dominance. This was no easy fight, and Yatin was quickly flung backward. But this only made him happier, as he practically drooled over its strength. A defense talent like that was exactly what Yatin wanted to steal next. He was determined to claim this incredible ability and make it his own. Stomping around in absolute fury, the massive beast roared and shook the ground. It charged right at Yatin once more, but the boy stood his ground. Staring at that beautiful defensive ability, he prepared to add it to his collection. No matter what, he would take it, activating his speed talent to advance. He boosted forward like a streak of lightning, closing the distance instantly. Yatin was never one for theatrical showmanship or dragging fights out. He preferred to end things swiftly, minimizing damage while securing maximum profit. He was a highly efficient killer, and the weakest spot on any beast. It was always the eyes, so Yatin launched himself into the air. Moving like a demon, he targeted the creature's vulnerable, glowing eyes. Locking his focus onto those fragile bulbs, he thrust his steel blades forward. He poured all of his physical strength into this single, devastating strike. But breaking through the armored ox's defensive aura proved incredibly difficult. The beast's skin was exceptionally tough, deflecting his initial assault. Still, Yatin refused to let this juicy defense talent slip through his fingers. Even for a low-tier ability, its defensive power was remarkably resilient. It resisted his strikes easily, even denting the stolen blades he held. Oh, this armored pig was absolutely going to pay for ruining his weapons. The monster smashed his gear but missed his body. Etienne paused as danger sense flared. A massive hostile fist was already hurtling straight toward him with devastating force. This giant beast clearly meant business. It knew nothing about Yi Tian's reputation. Yet even this wild creature sensed the kid was trouble and went all out. Unleashing its full power, the beast forced Yi Tian back, making him hiss in pain. The brutal impact sent him flying, crashing hard right into a pile of nearby rocks. It had been a long time since anyone managed to push him this far. The fight was getting incredibly personal now, and our boy's intense hunger to copy that amazing talent only grew much stronger. He absolutely had to copy it, though waiting 16 more days was a major drag. Still, our young fighter pressed forward to claim what he wanted. He was certain this beast possessed an ability far superior to his other powers. It easily surpassed the Silver Moon Wolf and even the Lethal Viper talent. But since the creature had damaged one of his stolen swords, Yi Tian needed a new plan. The monster was massive, but if our guy could just find a weak spot, a single, well-placed sneak attack would be more than enough to win. That tiny glimmer of hope had him grinning like a little devil. Giving up was never an option, so he immediately activated his shadow talent. Bounding forward, he decided to see if a blindside assault would do the trick. Slipping into the shadow realm meant the beast could not see him. And if the enemy could not see him, it could not launch an attack. Combining shadow stealth with his incredible speed, Yi Tian became a vortex of pain. Just as he guessed, the slow monster could not track his movements at all. Yet even his blade talent attacks did absolutely nothing to its defense. That stubborn defensive shield remained active, blocking every single strike. The beast kept the barrier up even without knowing where he was. What a pain. Yi Tian desperately searched for an opening, wondering where its weakness could be. It was a highly frustrating situation, with no obvious gap in its guard. Still, a flaw had to exist somewhere, because no beast is completely invincible. Especially not a low-tier one. Suddenly, our main character spotted something interesting. He noticed a very vulnerable spot right on the beast's backside. What an incredibly thin shield it had over the one place it should protect most. Yi Tian was about to play dirty, but exploiting weaknesses was his specialty. Without a second thought, he channeled his shadow force. Blending it with high speed, he lunged straight for the creature's rear. Readying his dark blade, he prepared for a truly ruthless, dirty strike. Our guy unleashed his shadow kill technique in the most brutal spot imaginable. He literally brought the poor beast down by the balls. Talk about shameless. The massive pig felt a level of agonizing pain beyond any comprehension. Its lower region suffered such critical damage that it was instantly lights out. The beast passed out from the agony, bleeding out while Yi Tian celebrated. He cheered for his own brilliant, albeit slightly evil, deduction skills. Standing over the fallen monster, Yi Tian gave the corpse a quick poke. It was a relief to see that the annoying shield deactivated once it died. Since he could not copy that top-tier talent just yet, he could at least harvest the beast's blood, quickly gathering a massive amount in his extremely fancy storage jar. Honestly, he had actually brought quite a few of those. Talk about a shameless grave robber. Still, no matter how strong or talented you were, it meant nothing once you got defeated. He was getting pretty philosophical now. Right after pulling the dirtiest, most underhanded trick in the book to win. With his foe down, Yi Tian carefully examined the armored ox's thick hide. He knew this could fetch some decent cash, so he planned to skin it, take the eyes, and even harvest the private parts he had sliced off. This greedy guy wanted to sell every single piece of his poor victim, but the truly priceless treasure here lay in those magnificent horns. Soon, with his bag completely overflowing with materials, Yi Tian hauled the heavy sack onto his shoulders and set out into the wild. Looking for a completely isolated spot to begin his cultivation, it did not take long to find a quiet cave that was almost as pitch black as his own heart. Armed with beast blood and some snacks from home, he grinned like a pure maniac. quietly telling the harvested body parts that they were going to help him break right through to the martial warrior realm. With that, he greedily swallowed the core. The grueling process started, slowly driving his power levels up as he focused entirely on refining his inner spiritual core. 20 days passed in a flash, and he emerged completely transformed with long, incredibly badass hair. He had reached an entirely new tier of strength, his eyes glowing bright blue with insane energy. Brimming with raw power, he let out a massive howl like a captive wolf that had finally escaped into the wild. This is exactly how it feels when you get drunk on absolute mountain-shattering power. He was so incredibly hyped that his aura literally exploded like a volcano. This massive blast immediately caught the attention of some passing cultivators. These girls easily recognized the unmistakable signs of a martial warrior breakthrough occurring in this barren wasteland. A striking dark goth girl in the group looked highly intrigued by the spectacle, offering a mysterious little smile. Meanwhile, Yi Tian was still inside, happily flexing his muscles. He felt deeply moved by the violent surge of immense power currently rushing through his veins. This was the real deal. The martial warrior realm, thanks to that armored ox he had easily regained. The top-tier strength that had previously escaped him. 20 days had also passed, meaning his copy cooldown was finally over. Watch what he does next. Because he was absolutely starving to steal some talents again, first things first. He grabbed his gear and bolted straight back to the dead armored ox. Eager to copy its talent, he burst onto the scene and found the corpse right where he left it, but there was a massive catch. The target was incomplete and copying was impossible. The beast was dead and had already disintegrated too much. Yi Tian was deeply disappointed by this highly annoying restriction on his copy talent, but it was not all bad news. He could still steal from other targets. If he had known about this restriction, he would never have chopped that ox into tiny pieces. Meanwhile, those curious girls were still lurking nearby. They had nothing better to do but watch him examine the beast, wondering if he was the killer. They were real detectives, but that gothic girl was definitely. She found it highly unlikely, as this powerful warrior had only just become a martial warrior. Besides, that monster had clearly been dead for a few days. It simply made no sense that he was the one who killed it. Still, it was impressive. For a mere martial apprentice, Yi Tian really dared to scavenge this dangerous mountain. Talk about bold. With that wrapped up, Yi Tian strolled over to a lake. That giant bag of his must have some built-in magic refrigeration, otherwise those scavenged parts would have rotted away by now. He had been surviving out in the wild alone for more than 20 days, and right now, he needed a good wash before heading back home. He might be a scavenger, but at least he cared about basic hygiene, so he stripped right down, giving those stalking spies quite a show. The girl gasped at his sudden move and hurried to escape. Yi Tian dove straight into the cold water with his underwear still on, which was honestly a bit weird, since it would be far more normal to air out his gear. Regardless, after a quick bath, Yi Tian finally made his way to the bustling martial marketplace at the Linhai base. This was an incredibly dangerous, high-risk place. Considering he was just a beginner, still, he had business to do. So he confidently made his way directly toward the largest shop in the entire market. Yi Tian wanted to get top dollar for all his scavenged goods. The prestigious Martial Pavilion was the very first place he wanted to check out today. Stepping inside, he completely passed by the two beautiful girls who had been secretly spying on him. Back in the mountains, they obviously recognized him, but he had no clue. He absolutely hated any unnecessary trouble, but he immediately noticed the dark-haired girl turning in shock. This was because she looked so much like his adorable little sister. Yi Tian was totally stunned, immediately reaching absolute peak levels of a sister complex when he mistook this random, gorgeous stranger in the market for his sibling. The girl was completely taken aback to be stared at in such a sudden manner, especially from the handsome guy she was just admiring a few hours ago. She was not amused. Luckily, Yi Tian quickly snapped out of it. Before any awkwardness could settle in, there was no way his sister would be here. He decided to ignore it and keep moving, but when he took another quick peek, his eyes nearly popped right out of their sockets from sheer disbelief. Wait, what was he seeing? He simply could not believe his eyes. Before him stood a genuine, high-tier genius. Her talent was excellent, her sword talent was average, and her speed talent was actually kind of low, but her cultivation talent was truly exceptional. Forget about the sister lookalike. He desperately wanted her talent. Standing right next to her was a loud blonde sidekick, who seemed to act like a typical yes man. She immediately barked that Yi Tian had a serious amount of nerve for calling this beautiful genius his sister, especially since he was just a lowly scavenger. Talk about an insult. Yi Tian quietly wondered if he actually smelled bad enough for them to call him trash. The blonde sidekick was named Xiao Yu, but her genius companion quickly told her not to speak so carelessly. Looking embarrassed, the blonde sidekick hastily retreated to gossip in whispers with her superior. After a moment, she stepped forward again, politely greeting him as an esteemed martial warrior. One second she is a fierce warrior, and the next she is switching up completely. Still, our main character was pretty interested in this black-haired goth genius. She had already walked off due to her duties, leaving the blonde behind, who grabbed him and said he was in luck. Apparently, her lady was the master of the martial pavilion itself, and they would pay double for his scrap materials just to make up for being so rude earlier. The boy was absolutely stunned. They were offering double pay without even knowing what he was carrying. But they made the offer, and he was not letting them back out, so he followed the blonde inside, checking out all the incredible gear on display. Exactly what you would expect from the largest shop in the martial marketplace. They treated him like a VIP right away. It was almost weird. They served him warm tea and began evaluating all the valuable materials he brought. The total value of his loot was 20,000 yuan, and since they promised to double it, they were literally going to hand this broke guy 40,000 yuan. The boy could not believe his luck struck gold. This was the easiest money he had ever made, and he needed a moment to catch his breath. Then they handed him 4 white cards worth 10,000 yuan each. Our main character happily grabbed the cards with a huge grin, thinking about his sister. This money would change her entire life, exactly what she needed. But wait, the girls were not even done apologizing to him yet. Next up was the real shocker. Along with doubling the payout for his loot, they offered him a massive 50% discount on anything in the store. Crazy. Naturally, our local opportunist had no intention of holding back. Once an opportunity like this knocked, he was absolutely going to take full advantage. But looking at the price list, everything was ridiculously expensive. No wonder. It was clear the major families completely monopolized this entire cultivation world when they kept prices sky high. Talk about dirty work. No normal person could ever afford these resources. Picking very carefully, he eventually selected a profound training manual, a monster directory, and 3 bottles of mid-tier monster blood along with 3 bottles of restoration elixir. That would do for now. The blonde girl turned around and headed to the shelves to grab his items. Even with the massive discount, his total bill came out to 70,000 yuan, nearly wiping out all the profits he had just made. But the boy simply handed her the gold card he had looted off the dead assassin. Turns out getting targeted by assassins has its perks, real perks. He took his change, still wondering why they were treating him so incredibly well. There was no way getting called a scavenger once deserved this kind of apology. He was just a regular poor guy. What on earth did they see in him? Well, he was not about to look a gift horse in the mouth. Just as he turned to leave, the blonde asked the esteemed martial warrior to wait. He paused, prepared for battle. He knew things are never simple. and he was ready to handle whatever trap they had waiting for him. He spun around, a heavy dark aura flaring up, but she simply told him that the pavilion manager wanted a meeting. The boy smirked, telling her to lead the way. It was time for the real game to start as he headed upstairs, only to find the gorgeous goth lady waiting for him, calmly sipping tea. It seriously felt like she was courting him. He was welcomed inside. Entering the private room, he is instantly shocked by her resemblance to his sister. He seriously needs to fight his sister complex if this ship is going to sail. After all, a lady like her is definitely not looking to be friend-zoned. The beautiful genius introduces herself as Yu Ling from the massive Mohai base. As she shakes hands with her crush, he instantly copies her secret talent. Trust our guy to never let a perfect opportunity like this go to waste. He introduces himself as Yuan from Linhai, though he knows his background is fake. He has no ties to powerful families, making him wonder about his worth. Yu Ling seems to agree, noting his background is not why she is interested. She sees something else in him, a potential that goes far beyond birthright. The stunning gothic beauty stares him down, practically looking like a sugar mommy. But our thick-headed main character is still just thinking about his little sister. He is absolutely about to fumble this. They serve him tea with care. She gets straight to the point, explaining the real reason for this invitation. She wants to offer him a special opportunity and slides a token forward. Handing over a beautifully crafted red emblem, she invites him to the Martial Pavilion. He sits there in complete silence, still distracted by thoughts of his sister. Saying no to a face like that is almost impossible, leaving him conflicted. He has no idea how to reject her, especially with such a gorgeous token. Still, one burning question keeps bugging him about this whole deal. Mohai is a massive base with near limitless power and countless elites. They are never short on talent, so why recruit a complete nobody like him? He is currently nothing more than a novice martial warrior in their eyes. She stands up, stretching casually as she explains their recruitment philosophy. Large bases stay powerful precisely because they never stop gathering young talent. She is not backing down, determined to bring him into her faction. That actually makes perfect sense to Yashin, thanks to her undeniable logic. Seeing her speak so maturely is a wild contrast to her young appearance. She is looking at the bigger picture, showing the wisdom of a true genius. His actual little sister could never say something this incredibly smart. Maybe he is finally breaking free of that sister complex after all. The surrounding female attendants look anxious, wondering why he is still hesitating. To them, this is a legendary opportunity he should immediately jump on. Even top-tier disciples from powerful families would kill for an offer like this. Yet here she is, personally reaching out and offering him a spot. It is an amazing chance, but joining also means binding himself to rules. If anyone ever discovers his copying ability, it is game over. They would definitely hunt him down for being a talent thief. So until he gets much stronger, staying independent is his safest bet. He is determined to rely on himself and avoid unnecessary chains. Making up his mind, he prepares to speak when Yu Ling cuts in. She gently asks what is holding him back, making it even harder to refuse. Looking at her expectant eyes, he tries his best to find an excuse. Rumors of the Iron Fang's invasion had already caused massive panic in the city. The Hai families panicked. Yeshin, however, just wanted peace. Master Mo was gone, finally giving Yeshin some quiet days. He had absolutely no interest in becoming like those elites or serving them. Suddenly, she asked if she really looked like one of those greedy tyrants. So she offered him a chance, observed them for a while. No rush to answer, she had more than enough patience. Their eyes locked, two powerful wills clashing in a silent battle. After that heavy talk, the young man turned around and quietly departed. Walking away, he began to question the true definition of a martial warrior. He wondered if the gifted elite even remembered their original sacred duty. After all, martial warriors were supposed to protect the innocent. That standard felt like a complete joke in times like these. Now great talents were only used for oppression, and Yeshin hated it. He refused to become like them. Right then, a child's ball rolled near a guard. The kids politely asked him to kick it back, but that heartless guard immediately crushed the ball to pieces, using his power to bully them. He terrorized citizens who were already living in fear. The world disgusted Yeshin. Changing this broken society was still far beyond his current level of power. But he would still try. He needed more strength, tapping into his Kopid power. He focused on the top-tier cultivation talent he had recently acquired. To climb higher, he immediately activated the process to fuse his talents. Days later, Yeshin finally returned home after a highly successful trip. He was incredibly excited to finally see his beloved little sister again. She ran out to greet him, throwing her arms around him tightly. Giggling, she pointed out that he had gotten much tougher while away. He had been gone for 20 days, and she missed him terribly. Now that he was officially a martial warrior, she was absolutely amazed. The Yi family finally had a real martial warrior of their own. She began dancing around the room, cheering about the wonderful news. As she celebrated, her brother quietly watched her and smiled to himself. He hoped she would awaken her own talent and become strong too. Finding compatible items was his priority. He would not abandon her. He refused to let his sister remain a helpless princess who always needed saving. Instead, he would guide her so they could climb to the top together. Suddenly, she offered to cut his hair, which instantly filled him with dread. He looked great with long hair, but she insisted he looked like a beggar. Leave it to your own family to completely ruin your cool warrior vibe. She promised she could make him look even better, which sounded highly suspicious. Telling him to sit still, she smiled as he trusted her. He gave her permission to start, though she had only one style in mind. It was the classic bowl cut, the only style she actually knew how to do. Yeshin smiled warmly, remembering she had not cut his hair in years. Ever since their parents passed, she had been terrified of the scissors. Back then, she had held them with trembling hands, terrified of ruining his hair. A hospital was unnecessary since she had only nicked his head with a tiny cut. Besides, if they were not completely broke, he would be at a barber shop anyway. That beating was nothing. He just needed his little sister to help him out. She just needed to trim his hair and bandage his small wound. But she kept crying, wishing her brother had immortal jellyfish healing powers. Of course, he did not possess any magical jellyfish powers back then. Taver was the one who actually took the beating, but she was the one crying. Apparently, the mythical immortal jellyfish from those stories possessed legendary healing abilities. Whenever they were injured, they would recover almost instantly from any wound. He chuckled. She actually believed in child stories. But she stubbornly insisted that the beautiful story was absolutely real. With a gentle smile, he patted her head, knowing she was just worried. He hoped that when his talent awoke, it would be a healing power. No more injuries. That way, he would never suffer again. Yein had not forgotten his promise to protect his sister. Suddenly remembering the immortal jellyfish, he jumped straight to his feet. His sister stared in shock, wondering what he was doing mid-haircut. He quickly grabbed the book of beasts he had bought to check. Unbelievable, the legendary immortal jellyfish actually existed in this world. It was a water-type beast with healing talent inside the lake of death. His sister wondered what on earth he was suddenly mumbling about. If he could copy a healing talent, future battles would not terrify him. Perfect, his sweet little sister would never have to worry again. It aligned with exactly what he wanted. Then, his sister started teasing. She claimed the jellyfish only existed in stories to fool little children. She was throwing his own past words right back at him. How adorable. Things changed. Our main character now had a new target in sight. Some stories are real, and this jellyfish was going to save him. He was going to steal that power. His sister did not care. She only wanted to finish cutting his hair and ruin his style. His hair was chopped off quickly. Next, he studied body training techniques. He was going to try some of these interesting methods out first. He practiced carefully. He had to make absolutely sure they were correct. Sitting on the floor, he realized how slow his past absorption was. Comparing his past speed to his present pace made it incredibly obvious. He wondered what the effect would be if he consumed more of that beast blood. Liquid power, he brought out the mid-tier ferocious beast blood he saved. He swallowed the disgusting liquid, knowing that real power always demanded pain. He focused, amazed as the power bubbled and surged wildly around him. Now a true martial warrior, he had taken his very first step. He was on his way to becoming the ultimate thieving hero. Absolutely fantastic, his absorption speed had increased threefold now. He would cultivate at home first, then head to the Lake of Death. Once his copying talent was ready, he would hunt that immortal jellyfish. Payback time, meanwhile, over at the busy Marshall Pavilion. Our guy strolled straight into the high-end store. The blonde clerk working there was thrilled to see him again and recognized him instantly, even though Yui knew him only as a junk collector. She warmly waved him over, asking if he came looking for their young miss. She made an amazing wingwoman, but our recycler was only there to buy resources. He still had no idea that the manager actually had a massive crush on him. They could take things slow, plus he looked much more attractive with his sharp new haircut, especially now that he was all dressed up. Since he came in as a customer, she was ready to help, so he jumped straight to the point, asking for a map of the Lake of Death. They actually had one in stock, so she quickly went to fetch it. She rummaged through the back and brought out a dusty, worn-out map, but that trashy-looking piece of paper was exactly what he wanted. He was thrilled knowing he could copy some incredible talents at that location. He then asked the price and was shocked by the $100,000 price tag. There was so much in this cultivation world that was far too expensive for Yaishin's sanity. Luckily, he had the cash, so he paid for the map and left. The blonde clerk wondered if he was off to collect more trash. The young miss had already warned her that the Lake of Death was teeming with beasts. This poor girl just got a crush, and here he was, practically on a suicide mission, facing monsters that even elite martial warriors struggled to defeat. The clerk prayed that nothing terrible would happen to him, but Yaishin was not bothered by fear at all, sprinting straight toward the dangerous location he wanted. Our guy was chasing a top-tier healing ability, and he wouldn't stop until he got his hands on it. The Lake of Death was surrounded by a barren and desolate wasteland. It looked incredibly hostile, but he was certain he would find great talents here. This dangerous place was a massive gold mine. The area also seemed like it had been abandoned for ages, but things started looking incredibly strange and creepy, with a weird atmosphere that felt like some deadly trap was about to spring from nowhere. Yaishin stayed alert, slowly pacing through the area until he noticed something weird. A violent, roaring storm was heading straight toward his position. It was bizarre that he hadn't felt any wind or warning signs beforehand. Since the storm was practically right on top of him now, it was a terrifying vortex of deadly beasts, so he decided to vanish and observe the situation from hiding. He immediately activated his shadow talent and vanished completely from the beast's line of sight. He slipped away, leaping through the rocks until he spotted a hidden valley tucked deep within the mountains. It almost seemed like someone lived here. Even more shocking, right in the center of that raging tempest was the young miss who looked exactly like his sister, alongside an elderly man. What a massive coincidence to find her out here. Surely she hadn't risked her life just because she heard her crush might get himself killed on some dangerous island. There was no way she liked him that much, sure enough. She was desperately fighting off the fierce monster of the tempest. The old man groaned in pain, warning her they wouldn't survive. If this relentless onslaught continued, the beast was trying to devour them both, and they were struggling to survive against the gale force winds. This beast was a high-tier aquatic. The monster they fought was absolutely giant, easily as big as a mountain, a total nightmare, their chance of survival basically zero. Recognizing this, the desperate senior made a move. He threw the girl away to buy her time. He was sacrificing his life. She was horrified, terrified, but she had to survive now. Clutching the ancient box, she refused to let his sacrifice be vain. She bolted as a vicious creature snapped at her heels. Even if she escaped, a whole pack of monsters was still gunning to take her down. No way she could fight them alone. Still, the Gothic girl ran. She ran as fast as possible. This entire chaotic mess was extremely troublesome for Yeti Tian. He only wanted some private training, not to find people getting ambushed, but this thief had a hero's heart. He had to step in and help. Meanwhile, the beautiful young lady kept running for her life. Turning back was not an option. The beasts chasing her were massive, easily as tall as 5 speeding trucks combined. Insane. No wonder sensible people stayed far away from this dangerous island. The old man screamed for his young lady to watch out. The beast was ready to swallow her whole. Luckily, she dodged in time. Relief, a girl with her elite talent was no damsel in distress. She quickly unlocked her secret technique, showcasing her pure genius. Activating her move, she watched her hair turn cherry blossom pink as she launched a fierce counterattack against the ugly monster chasing her down. Did that ugly thing really think it could eat her? Hilarious. Talk about disrespect. The monster looked shocked as she suddenly vanished from its line of sight, only to crash down like a complete wrecking ball. Sliced the stupid beast in half. She was brutal, merciless, and absolutely stunning. Yeti Tian was thoroughly impressed. Sparks and red lights flew, starting a deep bond of passion. He was amazed at how powerful these secret arts actually were. Carefully, he positioned himself on a nearby hill. He had almost messed up. This was no place for a novice. He decided to play it smart, using his brain to stay out of the difficult situation until he found an opening. Meanwhile, she was flipping around, taking heads. Insanely impressive. Yoling was an elite martial warrior at the peak realm and a complete powerhouse. Those ugly monsters did not stand a single chance. With her secret technique active, her power rivaled that of a great warrior. Honestly, even 10 of him would not be enough to defeat her, but that massive water beast was still causing serious trouble. The injured senior cried out that his leg was badly hurt, begging the young lady to escape while she still had a chance because that hideous monster was coming straight for her. Her secret technique would not last long, and they had to retreat. Protecting the treasure mattered more than anything, even his own life. They had risked far too much to secure that mysterious golden box, and they could not let their fallen brothers sacrifice themselves for nothing. The guards lay dead on the ground, leaving only these 2 survivors. Tears filled her eyes as she cursed her luck, refusing to let it end this way. Yushin realized 10 people had already lost their lives in this brutal underwater clash. It was a tragic loss, making him wonder what kind of prize lay inside. What kind of valuable treasure could possibly be worth sacrificing so many lives? He watched Shiffy struggle to escape while clinging desperately to the golden chest. But it was useless. Her power was fading, and time was rapidly running out. The mysterious flower mark on her forehead began to dim, losing its glow. Her hair rapidly reverted to its original black. She simply was not going to make it. All that sacrifice was about to be in vain as the box slipped away. The golden container slid across the ground, stopping right in front of Yushin. He stood silently, his long coat swaying as he observed the unconscious girl. She weakly tried to open her eyes, unable to recognize the figure before her. As exhaustion completely took over, she collapsed. Yushin now stood alone on the quiet battlefield. With the threats cleared, he wondered what prize was worth so much bloodshed. He picked up the chest, causing Shiffy to weakly protest, warning him not to touch it. That was insulting. He might take things, but he would not steal from her. He had rules. Besides, those ugly crocodile beasts were already regrouping for another attack. The monsters kept swarming toward them, so Yushin apologized as he lifted her up. It was much safer to escape and hide until the swamp creatures finally gave up. Holding both her and the box, he muttered that silence meant consent to save her. Since she was out cold, he was taking her silence as a yes. He quickly activated his movement technique, leaving the danger zone behind in a flash. The old guard was left behind. Safely inside a nearby cave, he wrapped his coat around her. He sat quietly, watching over her as she rested under his warm coat. Without her usual sharp attitude, she actually bore a striking resemblance to his sister. The likeness was almost uncanny, except for the tiny beauty mark on her face. Yushin even tried to casually wipe the mark off, finding it was totally real. It was a clear reminder that this girl was just a stranger, not his sibling. Even so, she had been quite kind to him despite being from a different world. Seriously, is she ever going to wake up, or are we stuck here forever? Yushin was beginning to worry, wondering if her condition was far worse than it looked. She seemed deeply asleep, wrapped snugly in his heavy winter coat. That was nice for her, but he really wanted his jacket back at some point. Shiffy stirred slightly, and Yushin quickly stepped back as her eyelids began to flutter. She sat up slowly, completely shocked to find him standing right beside her. She found it hard to believe that this mysterious boy had actually rescued her. He claimed he was just passing by, which was a pretty absurd excuse. No one wanders near the deadly lake by accident. Still, she thanked him for everything. She appreciated his assistance and the coat, showing a sudden interest in her savior. She was highly impressed that he had braved this dangerous area completely on his own. It turned out Shiffy was quite a talent recruiter for her prestigious organization. She was determined to recruit strong people like him into her martial pavilion. Meeting a genius like him in the wild was an absolute stroke of luck. Suddenly, she summoned a bright light, leaving Yushin utterly bewildered. She giggled at him, teasing him for getting upset over a little light like a cockroach. It was just a light stone, perfect to use as a lamp while they hid inside the cave. The stone floated high, completely lighting up the dark space just as she had promised. Was pretty impressed, asking how she managed to summon something out of thin air. Curiosity was exactly what she wanted to see, jackpot, since she was still actively chasing his talented Mew skills. She decided to explain further after drinking a glowing healing potion. Naturally, she waved the bottle right in front of him to entice him even more. Honestly, she was pulling out all the stops here, after taking a quick sip. The boy began to wonder if she possessed some rare space-time talent. He had not seen anything like that listed among her genius skills, but he was incredibly curious about the whole thing. Time to recover. Sitting alone, the lady tried to rebuild her energy. Beautiful green sparkles drifted all around her as she cultivated her power. It took a bit of time, but she finally finished healing herself. With the recovery out of the way, she was ready to explain her mysterious powers. With him watching closely, she brought out a bronze chest, showing him how much larger it was compared to the small pouch in her hand. Then, with great care and a touch of incredible magic, she shrank the chest right down and slipped it inside the tiny bag. This was no ordinary space talent, but a real space-time treasure. She beamed with pride, showing off such an incredibly useful tool. If he wanted to learn how to use these amazing items, he really needed to hurry up and join her pavilion. Talk about pulling out all the stops. She wanted his incredible talent all to herself. The boy quickly backed off, recognizing a force he could not fight head-on. Sleep time. He flatly announced he was going to bed. She was disappointed, but she was not giving up on her chance to recruit him. She even gritted her teeth, determined to win him over one way or another. To him, it was just a space pouch and a recovery potion. He knew that once He copied both of her talents. Those items would not be special at all. But the real problem was her disturbing the lake of death, meaning nothing would remain peaceful for long. He had to lie low before trying to grab the jellyfish. Next morning, the boy was still sound asleep under his coat. He woke up refreshed and energized, completely ready to face the brand new day. But he realized he was completely alone in the cave. It seemed like his persistent admirer had given up. Wait, a mysterious red box sat right in front of him. Anyone would guess her favorite color was red, considering she usually dressed in all black. He knew this strange box had not been here before, but he decided to open it anyway. Imagine his absolute shock when he found a mid-tier profound training manual, 10 bottles of high-tier monster blood, and 10 gold cards, each worth a massive million. He could barely breathe looking at this literal gold mine he had just stumbled upon. This was unbelievable, a total jackpot. His admirer had actually left him a gold mine. Her courting game was top tier. She was definitely laying it on thick with these massive gifts. He smiled in pure amusement, silently thanking her. These resources would easily be enough for him to become an elite martial warrior. Honestly, having a powerful sugar mommy was pretty convenient. Either way, things had to change. Massive change of plans. He had to look for the immortal jellyfish in the lake right after he. So our boy got straight to cultivating. After seeing the monsters lurking in that lake, he knew he needed more power if he wanted to keep his head. He trained like crazy. Lucky for him, training arcs get fast-forwarded. And 4 months later, his hair was long again. Even his core had expanded massively, boosting his aura 1,000 times over. The sheer pressure he released now was way stronger than his last breakthrough. He was so powerful that the nearby mountains literally trembled, the energy coursing through his veins belonged to an elite martial warrior. His entire frame practically crackled with lightning. He was hyped. Quickly, the young man threw on his coat, grinning with absolute confidence. It was time to go hunting. Our guy had officially leveled up and reached some serious masterclass firepower. Now he was ready for the real world. Stepping outside, he found 11 freshly made graves for the guys who died protecting his sugar mommy, standing there with his long, wild hair. He looked like a stray-tup demon, knowing how many beasts swam in that lake. He doubted she even found any bones to bury. Those poor guys became first-class monster food. Still, she built these memorial graves anyway, proving she actually had a kind heart. That was incredibly rare in this brutal martial world. Then our boy spotted a strange diving umbrella nearby. Yeah, he remembered seeing it when he first arrived. Nice. Without a second thought, he decided to borrow it. Besides, his generous patron probably left it there for him to find. He watched in complete amazement as rain hit the massive umbrella, instantly forming a waterproof bubble. Now that was some high-quality gear. Since it was such an incredibly useful item, he was absolutely stealing it. Now he could dive straight into the deep water without a single care and rob his next target. Our guy wasted zero time getting down to business. Diving deep like the local jellyfish owed him cash. Thanks to that magical umbrella, his swimming speed shot up like crazy, allowing him to cut through the heavy underwater pressure effortlessly. In fact, his underwater movement was so fast he could easily trigger his shadow talent to glide completely unseen. Nobody would bother him until he located his prey. The boy was a sneaky one, but he always got the job done. Low risk and massive profit, just how he liked it. Suddenly he spotted a weird system screen popping up in the water. Right, he could check the stats of underwater monsters too, and a promising one was heading straight over. Too bad it only possessed a mid-tier talent. Pretty boring. He had no use for such trash. But then he noticed something highly disturbing. The mid-tier beasts in this pitch-black lake were built entirely different. The giant creature was massive, terrifying, and insanely fast underwater. No wonder so many martial artists lost their lives on that island. Thank goodness his stealth kept him completely hidden. That was a close call. If he swam any closer, that hideous monster would have spotted and shredded him. He had to stay on guard when even mid-tier trash was this gigantic. For now, he was completely fine, so he decided to keep heading deeper in mind. His own business to avoid dragging any unwanted underwater trouble his way. To avoid any unnecessary trouble, it did not take long to hit the deepest part of the lake, which honestly looked like a massive underwater forest. Glancing around, he spotted drifting tentacles and wondered if the legendary immortal jellyfish was actually down there. Right then, danger struck. A massive shape whipped through the water and scraped his protective bubble. Luckily, our guy was fast and managed to dodge the cheap shot, throwing himself back. His eyes widened in absolute shock when he saw the giant beast waiting in the shadows. It was really the immortal jellyfish holding that elite apex tier healing talent for a healer. That beast was easily the ugliest thing they had discovered so far in this bizarre world. There was absolutely no excuse for a healing jellyfish to have those weird muscular pointy spikes. To make things worse, it was fast, pure cheating. For a monster that huge, honestly, a poison talent would be highly useful here. Considering how these underwater beasts move, either way, our guy came all this way to hunt this creature, and he was not leaving empty-handed. The fight was on, and a sneaky thief like him never dragged things out. Yi Tian's whole plan was to end this as quickly as possible, but the monster shrieked in absolute fury. This hideous thing looked like a terrifying specter. It was mind-blowing how ugly it was. When damaged, a severed tentacle stretched out and regenerated in seconds. Super gross, but definitely a highly useful power for tight spots. Yeah, our guy was definitely taking that skill by any means necessary. Still, fighting a self-healing enemy is a massive pain in the neck. He had to find a quick way to bypass this defense, just like the dirty tricks he used on every other jerk. Of course, the jellyfish had other plans and was not giving Yi Tian any room to breathe. It launched non-stop heavy strikes. Fortunately for our hero, he only needed to make physical contact to copy its incredible power. Just one quick touch and the healing talent was duplicated. Still, he had to take a brutal direct hit to get it, which felt like getting smashed by a charging mountain. But hey, no regrets. The brand new elite regenerative ability was finally his, and raw energy surged through his body. His physical frame was already tough enough to handle this massive influx of power, while his intense training gave him an exceptionally high pain tolerance. Right then, the furious beast sprayed a blast of disgusting pink poison straight at his face. Talk about playing dirty. It really seemed like our local cheater had finally met his match in this toxic sea monster. The deadly acid splashed his protective umbrella, melting it instantly and burning his hand. With the umbrella ruined, he could no longer sustain a dry breathing bubble. What an absolute waste of a great tool that was when Yi Tian noticed something far more terrifying. System alerts were spamming his vision, indicating the enemy was closing in fast. But the reality was infinitely worse. This was not a single boss going berserk. He was actually surrounded by a massive, angry swarm of immortal jellyfish. And they were jumping him. Well, that was perfectly fine with Yi Tian. He was no fool and knew exactly when to fall back. Instantly, he triggered his shadow talent and vanished into thin air. Outside, the rain was pouring down and boom, our guy Yi Tian burst out of the water. Talk about an incredibly narrow escape. Those aggressive jellyfish absolutely wanted him dead, and honestly, they still wanted him dead now. They actually pursued him all the way to the surface to finish things. Those overgrown bullies felt tough just because he was fighting alone. He quickly activated his movement speed talent, pushing its power to the absolute maximum limit. Those jellyfish were powerful, but they were still primarily deep-sea aquatic creatures. Their home was at the very bottom of the dark ocean floor. They could not navigate fast on land, so he easily vanished before they could even track him. Yi Tian was truly going through a lot of struggles today. Fortunately, the young man managed to locate a small hidden cave where he could safely lay low. He needed to hide and recover for a bit, considering the dangerous enemies he faced on a daily basis. It was best to quickly take advantage of this quiet time. To finally fuse the healing talent he had gone through so much trouble to steal. He triggered the fusion process immediately, bracing himself for the wave of sheer agonizing pain. He was basically downloading the ultimate cheat code directly into his cellular system, and his entire body had to reshape itself, transforming him from human to monster. Fortunately, Yi Tian had already copied so many different talents that his physical body was mostly used to it. Thankfully, he did not have to scream in agony to integrate this new power. Once the healing talent fully settled into his bruised system, he had to sit down and slowly catch his breath for a few minutes. At least the process went smoothly, and he was ready to test it. The jellyfish venom was incredibly fatal, which was an absolutely insane level of toxic power. Even a tiny drop of that toxin would cause instant death to regular humans. Looking closely at his scarred hand, Yi Tian instantly activated his healing talent like absolute magic. The deadly poison that had been rushing through his veins was completely flushed out, so he immediately tested his overall physical speed again. He felt no sluggishness whatsoever. He was still incredibly strong, and he smiled with pure relief that the injury would leave absolutely no scars behind. This was definitely the absolute best talent he had ever stolen in his entire life. Most of his current abilities were strictly support types, and he desperately wanted something that was a heavy hitter. If he was going to face off against truly powerful martial masters, he absolutely needed an offensive type talent. So with his goals set, the young man headed back home. Once back, he immediately began researching monsters. His monster guide had already helped him find that incredibly rare healing jellyfish. Now he needed to locate a powerful dimensional beast that possessed immense, raw offensive strength. His sister was furious that he had vanished for days without a single word. To make things funnier, he came home with much longer hair. It was hilarious. Yi Tian laughed, apologized to his sister, and immediately got back to researching the mighty ant species. Apparently, their group-based attacks could overwhelm even peak martial masters. This was exactly the kind of destructive attack talent he was looking for. Even though this strength-boosting ability usually required a massive, coordinated swarm to properly function, the rules of logic simply did not apply to Yi Tian. He was built different. He immediately headed over to Yue Ling's headquarters, and luckily, she was actually there to greet him. She smiled, teased him about his long hair, and asked what he needed this time. He had come here specifically to acquire a complete corpse of the mighty ant. Yi Tian is completely shameless now about his bizarre obsession with collecting corpses. He could at least pretend to be shy, but Yue Ling does not flinch. She suggests that soaking the body in wine might actually help reinvigorate it. That is definitely not what Yi Tian meant, but he decides not to explain. Besides, it is pretty rude of her to assume his body is sickly. He functions fine. Either way, they do not have mighty ants here. But she does have some interesting news about Linhai Base and another territory. They are building a joint trade route, but ferocious beasts swarm the path. Right in the middle is a massive nest of these coveted mighty ants. This grabs Yi Tian's attention, and he asks if the other party is Iron Fang Base. That destination is located about 100 kilometers away from their current Linhai base. All of this is highly suspicious, especially since young Mo was recently killed. The leaders of Iron Fang Base were the prime suspects in that murder. Everyone even feared those guys were planning a full-scale invasion. Somehow, the two sides managed to settle their mutual misunderstandings. They even secured a deal for the new trade route through Mo family mediation. Yi Tian carefully processes this update, but his suspicions are deeply triggered. Anything involving the Mo family usually means trouble, so he must tread lightly. Just then, Yue Ling pulls out a special token needed for the mission. This pass was originally meant for her, but she has no interest. Her family already rules a major base, so this task is beneath her. Because of that, she decides to hand the invitation over to Yi Tian. It is not like he wanted to work for these local bases anyway. He is only after the high-level ants to boost his stats. Both bases are sending out skilled warriors to clear the path. Anyone participating in the raid can easily harvest the fallen ant bodies. It sounds incredibly tedious, but it is the perfect chance to gain raw power. After all, the Lin family remains the unchallenged ruler of Linhai Base. Even if the Mo family has influence, they still answer to them. Now it is time for him to set out on his next major exploit. Arriving at the Lin family headquarters, crowds of hopeful cultivators have already gathered. Every single one of them is eager to secure a spot. Naturally, a wealthy powerhouse can easily recruit 100 top warriors instantly. Must be nice having that much cash to throw around for hired help. He proceeds with absolute caution. Suddenly, leader Lin Wanli arrives. The head of Linhai Base seems surprisingly cheerful as he welcomes the crowd. Right behind him, the Mo family enters with some seriously bad vibes. That is definitely not a good sign for anyone hoping for an easy mission. It has been a while since they last met, prompting a smirk from Yi Tian. Seeing his old enemies again makes him wonder how this clash will play out. You see, everyone already knows that Linhai Base is far too small. Its resources are incredibly limited, making it hard for anyone to cultivate properly. No one can ever get enough materials to reach the next level. That is why partnering with a medium base is such a massive deal. Linhai Base is essentially locking down a wealthy sponsor to fund their growth. The clearing operation was a major deal, tasking them with hunting down every beast they found. They had to secure Linhai Base, plus there were massive rewards waiting for participants. Everyone who joined stood to gain far more than in any previous beast hunt. The excited crowd of hunters cheered loudly, praising the generosity of the Lin family. But Yi Tian remained silent, completely ignoring the celebration. He was not there for the praise. He was only after the beasts. Suddenly, a familiar face caught his eye. It was Captain Gale Wolf, the very guy he plundered his first real talent from. That first encounter was a massive turning point in his life. Seeing him, the boy smiled, wondering if the captain still remembered their previous crossing. It was a fond memory. Stabbing a dead beast, stealing the credit, which made for a wonderful time. The Lin representative continued speaking, hyping up the crowd with grand promises. He even added that any loot they gathered during the hunt would belong entirely to them. Well, that was the exact reason Yi Tian had signed up in the first place. He was not doing this out of charity, as he had personal goals to accomplish. The nearby warriors cheered happily, but the rewards did not stop there. The Lin family had also prepared another highly lucrative bonus. While it was not a marriage proposal, it was still incredibly generous, offering everyone, at the martial warrior level, 20 bottles of mid-tier beast blood. They would also receive 2 million coins, making this a highly profitable venture. The beast blood made Yi Tian drool, while elite warriors would get 3 bottles of high-tier beast blood, along with 10 million coins. The deal kept getting better, and Yi Tian was incredibly glad he came. It was time to register, and the Lin elder hoped they were locked and loaded. The eager warriors rushed to line up, scrambling for a chance to win big. They had to place their hand on the assessment rock for evaluation. The hosts wanted to ensure they were not sending weaklings to their deaths. That would be a waste of resources, so they tested everyone individually. Waiting in line, the boy watched the other candidates with a critical eye. He scanned the crowd with a cold look. Yue Ling was completely right. There was no reason to tie himself to a major family, especially not the Mo family. If his true strength as an elite warrior was exposed during this test, It would bring a mountain of unwanted trouble directly to his doorstep. He absolutely did not want the Mo family breathing down his neck, since the device measured current power output. He simply had to hold back. By suppressing his aura, the stone would show a much lower rank. Finally, it was his turn to step forward and touch the assessment rock. The boy carefully placed his hand and fought with all his power to appear like a weakling. Playing the weak card was his best bet, and he could not afford to slip up. He had to keep his head down, especially with the Mo family patriarch watching. Yi Tian carefully controlled his energy flow, sending a faint pulse into the stone. He aimed to register as a late-stage martial warrior. Soon, the stone began to hum with power, and the device officially registered his rank. He successfully hid his strength, appearing as a standard late-stage martial warrior. Yet the Mo master still kept a sharp, suspicious eye on him. It would be far better if that man just focused on his own business. To be bothering others, honestly, he found it pretty strange for someone so young. To be a late-stage martial warrior, he couldn't help but wonder if the kid was a genius from a highly influential family. To reach this kind of level so early was unreal. Mo just kept gushing over this crazy talent. And that was actually just his fake talent. Talk about an absurd situation, right? At least saved him from being scrutinized. Yet he worried about showing a little too much of his hand, and things got worse because now the random onlookers around him were constantly gassing him up. This was a tight spot, especially with mid-stage warriors being jealous. Suddenly every other team wanted Yayin to join up. A few still had spots left in their ranks. They practically begged him. Still, Captain Gale Wolf figured that a late-stage martial warrior would never want to join their little group. Yet, they were shocked to see that moody kid heading straight for them. He walked up, tossing his hood down, smiling at the first guy he had ever shown his wild side to. He happily greeted Captain Gale Wolf, who was basically a hero to him because the man was kind. Unlike the trash who only sucked up to the rich, the captain was quite stunned to recognize the young martial apprentice who saved a little girl. He warmly welcomed Yayin back, offering his hearty congratulations on his incredible new strength while patting him on the shoulder. Yayin just laughed, saying he just got lucky. After all, not everyone is born with a natural talent. Then the kid shyly asked to join the Gale Wolf team for this mission. Yayin usually didn't work in groups, but he had accidentally caught the eye of that old creep, and he definitely didn't want that creep breathing down his neck. Better to hide behind the big captain's massive shadow to get the creep off his back. No problem at all. The captain couldn't believe his absolute luck and gladly welcomed the kid into the squad. Just like that, our genius secured a sweet hiding spot. One of the girls smiled, saying they definitely felt much safer having another late-stage martial warrior on the team. Yayin just smiled and made himself comfortable. Soon, they arrived at their designated mission area. It looked incredibly dark, depressing, and pretty desolate, just as they had expected. According to the map, there was going to be weak-tier monsters would be lurking in this zone, but they still had to prioritize their safety above all else and avoid acting recklessly. Suddenly, packs of canine beasts rushed them, but Yayin detected their approach immediately, warning his teammates before they were completely surrounded. These small wolves definitely reminded him of his early days crossing paths with the Mo family. He had rescued his senior from similar beasts. The captain moved swiftly, positioning their fighters to ensure that the weaker members stayed protected. Stay protected. He was a great leader, and now combat was finally about to begin. This was Yayin's very first team mission, and he honestly seemed quite happy to be there, surrounded by these hideous, ugly giant wolves, and their massive heavy hitter stood completely ready to clash while Yayin watched. Their blind spots, the pack snarled, clearly ready for a meal, but compared to the terrifying beasts Yayin had fought before, these things were. They were mostly just small fries, but considering the group he joined, He had to keep the safety of the weaker fighters in mind. Together, the captain and the thief would lead them all to victory and act as their final line of defense, both charged at the incoming beasts, who lunged right back. Honestly, those pink dogs never stood a chance. They were packed up in no time and sent packing right out of there. Yi barely even considered these weak little pups a real threat. They kept leaping at them left and right, baring their sharp teeth, which would terrify a normal person, but right now these beasts were harmless. They were such incredibly low-tier trash that he was simply kicking them aside. Talk about embarrassing, it was an absolute slaughter out there. Yi probably welcomed this easy fight after dealing with that annoying tentacle squad. He was finally out of danger and ready to crush some weaklings. No longer trapped by the monster vor, he could easily bully these wannabe wolves. Soon the beasts lay in their own blood, and the captain cheered happily. He was deeply impressed by the young man's incredible battle prowess. Though Yi took down 2 wolves, the captain boasted about taking out 3. This friendly boasting seemed to tickle a bit of the young man's pride, since he was clearly holding back, but he preferred to just laugh it off, instead of getting targeted by the scary Mo family in Thea again. The pretty girl clapped and cheered for him because he was just so cool. He wanted to keep a low profile, but can we blame them for fanboying? With such a strong ability, it was no surprise they held him in high regard, and even teased the captain for trying to compare himself to him. But it was strange, the wolves did not wait to attack them in the valley, where their chances of success would have been much higher. They probably wanted to, but simply could not, which felt quite foreboding. Perhaps their territory had been taken over by an even more formidable beast. They had to stay sharp, as stronger monsters were likely nearby. This realization instantly put the rest of the team on edge. Still, some tried to cheer up the nervous hunters by pointing out their strong fighters. With experts on their side, surely everything would turn out completely fine. To reassure them, the captain smiled happily and pulled out a special device. It was a walkie-talkie belonging to the prominent Lin family. Every leader received one, so it was not particularly rare, but it was vital. They could use it to call for backup if things got out of hand. This news put everyone at ease as they marched deeper into the wilderness. The relaxed and cheerful atmosphere of the group was the perfect cover for Yi who quietly walked behind them and enjoyed the peaceful moment. He genuinely appreciated the simple humor and light-hearted energy they brought. But that peace was instantly shattered when a strange noise echoed nearby. The captain noticed it as well, halting the team at once. Yi realized the threat was coming from above, and everyone looked up. There stood an armored variant of the crocodile beasts from the Forbidden Lake. It was a massive, fire-breathing lizard, and it looked incredibly dangerous. Looking as though it wore a polished suit of bright red armor, it possessed a low-tier fire talent, but fire is fire, and a massive fireball was heading directly towards them. Moments like this made Yi deeply regret not yet copying that incredible shield technique. If he had only known his target would escape so quickly, he would have held back longer. Instead, he had cut it up too soon. A monstrous roar, the beast unleashed a massive fireball, raining fire and brimstone right down on the squad without any warning. It roared again in pure rage, a colossal beast standing far taller than their captain, who was already a notably large, muscular warrior. Now, the other squad members decided to show off. They ignored smaller targets, choosing this exact moment to fight a giant beast. A fire-spitting beast instead. Sensing its aura, it was clear that the monster was only low tier. This gave them plenty of confidence to fight. Flames, no problem. 3 of them immediately rushed forward while the other 2 stronger fighters stayed back to observe their skills. Yi closely watched the trio, silently wondering if they would truly be fine fighting against a whole fire-breathing lizard, but the captain reassured him, noting it was just a low-tier creature. The chaotic battle kept raging as thick smoke began to blanket the entire area. Amazingly, the three actually did remarkably well. They proved they were not just dead weight, showing they could hold their own in a real fight. The captain praised them like an excited wolf teaching his young cubs to hunt. They successfully took it down, largely thanks to the young lady of the squad. If she had not distracted the monster with her arrows, they would have missed the chance to finish it so easily. Low-tier beasts were weak, making their defeat simple child's play. A few more successful kills like this, and their hunt would be incredibly easy. Then chaos, a massive vortex of fire, suddenly erupted out of nowhere. Barreling straight toward a resting teammate, Yitian sensed the danger instantly, dashing forward to grab the man and pull him away before the searing blast could reduce him to ashes. Clearly, they could not let their guard down just yet. With another flame attack incoming, there was a very high possibility that they were surrounded by the very same beasts. The threat was far from over. Yi Tian stood ready to fight as many rounds as it took, completely unfazed by these weak monsters. He had survived deep, treacherous wilderness before, making these lizards look like simple toys. Still, his saved teammate was trembling in sheer terror as more beasts closed in. The captain grabbed his communicator to request immediate emergency backup. Their location in Zone C was heavily compromised, and they desperately needed any nearby hunters to come and lend a hand. A whole pack of hostile, fire-spitting lizards had their entire squad completely surrounded. But get this, their distress call was completely ignored. That is what happens when commoners assume that the elite and wealthy actually care about their survival. The captain had naively believed the powerful Lin family possessed basic human empathy. In reality, they were just greedy, money-hungry demons wearing human skins. With their hopes shattered, the squad had to find a way out on their own. The talent-ruled world was cold, and anyone deemed weak was left behind. In a fit of rage, the captain smashed his communicator. He checked his communicator in disappointment. The big names were completely rotten. They were rotten to the core. This weak team stood no chance at all. Facing these monsters head-on was suicide, so the captain gave a direct order. He told them to scram. Gale Wolf was ready to hold off the horde alone. It was a total suicide mission. There was simply no way he could do it. Facing those beasts alone was impossible, yet his squad tried to pull the Brotherhood card. They wanted to stand together without the strength to back it up, which was sweet. But honestly, they would help the captain much more by just running away. He ordered them to move out immediately, taking full responsibility as their leader. He led them into this mess, and he would not sit back and watch. Watching his crew die made his stomach churn, but the team remained emotional. Well, everyone except for that one guy who had almost died earlier. Zai mocked him for being a total coward, but the guy knew his limits. He knew where survival ended and suicide began, so he bolted right away. The older members complained that rookies were completely useless in a real crisis. If they survived, they promised to track him down and beat him up. But realistically, nobody should blame the guy for putting survival first in this dog-eat-dog world. Since Yishin was incredibly talented, the captain refused to let his potential go to waste. He told the boy to grab his two brothers and run, which was pretty funny. Especially since one of those brothers clearly had a female figure. Also, how polite of the monsters not to attack while everyone was busy sharing this incredibly heartwarming speech. They treated our main character like a complete novice, begging him to escape. They wanted him to protect his incredibly promising future, showing some seriously sweet concern. It was seriously quite cute, and the young thief agreed to escape. However, he was going to run forward instead of back. Yishin started gathering his massive power. He maxed out his aura with a very amused smirk playing on his face. The captain was stunned to feel the aura of an elite martial warrior. The boy had flexed his strength, and now everyone knew he was hiding power. They could not believe that someone so powerful was hanging around with them. Yishin had originally wanted to keep his true abilities hidden from the world. But backed into a corner like this, he simply could not hold back anymore. If he did not unleash his power and solo these monsters right now, if he refused to take down these beasts, then the team would perish. The Gale Wolf mercenary squad would be completely wiped out, so he charged ahead. He knew the captain could easily escape this mess on his own. Yet the man chose to stay behind and fight alone to save his teammates. He was a genuine hero, the exact kind of man that Yishin could truly respect. Every bit of his resolve and courage made Yishin feel like a jerk, especially if he kept hiding his power and let these brave people die. Now that it was up to him to butcher these giant lizard monsters, Yishin wondered if he was any different from the evil Mo family. Exposing himself carried major risks, but there was no time to worry. He had absolutely zero time to analyze the consequences of his actions. Our hero decided to trust Captain Gale Wolf, believing the man would keep his secret. He raced forward with full focus, ready to lay waste to the entire battlefield. The unstable cavern was starting to fall to pieces around him. The more Yi Tian fought, the more he questioned his choices. He went to town on those poor monsters, leaving them absolutely zero chance of survival. They kept charging in blindly, only to be relentlessly beaten down and thrown aside by our hero. Firework-like explosions filled the air as he continued his brutal beatdown. His new audience watched, completely awestruck by his elite martial warrior strength. Cheering for him as he fought their battles was the very least they could do. It was honestly for the best that they stayed put so he could protect them. While the sheer number of wild beasts was overwhelming, they had a weakness. They were incredibly slow and stupid compared to our main guy. He sliced through them left and right, using every ounce of his strength. Extending his long blade, he unleashed a special shadow attack to clear the area. The final monsters tried to resist, but they stood absolutely zero chance. They could never match our guy's incredibly slick combat style as they roared in pain. The beasts finally crumbled, which was overdue since they had lasted way too long. As the creatures fell to pieces, the stunned squad captain could only watch. He stared in total shock, realizing just how absurdly powerful the kid was. Honestly, seeing him show off like this made the captain a bit jealous. His devastating power easily ranked at the very top tier of Linhai base. They were just finishing up the cleanup when a sudden scream broke the silence. The coward who ran away earlier was now getting cornered by mutant dogs. Imagine running from fire-breathing lizards only to get cornered by simple wild dogs. He should honestly cover his face in shame, especially with the pack closing in. They were already busy biting him, leaving the guy looking completely horrified. Hearing his pathetic squeals, the team decided to completely ignore him. He chose to abandon them first, so they had absolutely no reason to help him. With the path finally clear, the young warrior wanted to claim his target talent. He calmly asked the survivors if they wanted to move forward or retreat. They had to lick their wounds, especially without backup from the corrupt Lin family. Would they actually follow this highly mysterious and powerful warrior, Yi Tian? Or would they end their dangerous quest right here and go back home? The group stared in quiet awe while their captain carefully weighed the options. Finally, the captain declared that the Gale Wolf squad sticks together, always. Yi Tian had officially joined his first squad, even if they were complete liabilities. At least they were decent people, bringing a faint smile to his face. In his eyes, there was no real difference between the vile Mo family and the corrupt Lin family, which explained their unholy alliance in the first place. Now that the monsters were cleared out, everyone could finally take a break. They happily thanked Big Brother Yi Tian for keeping them all alive. He looked back at his incredibly loud, over-enthusiastic group of survivors. A personal fan club was not what he wanted, but he tolerated it for now. However, he needed to slip away alone to test out a few things. He encouraged them to keep moving forward while he quietly planned his exit. It was only temporary, but keeping them close right now was too risky. Moving forward blindly as a group simply was not the smartest play. They should head back first while he went on alone, leaving the captain quite worried. He assured him everything would be fine, but Gale Wolf still felt pretty uneasy and wanted to talk things through. Honestly, it felt like they were splitting up already. The rest of the team wondered if they should just follow their big brother. But they immediately worried they would only get in his way. Slowing him down was the absolute last thing any of them wanted to do. With his insane strength, he honestly did not need their help. He walked on. Eyes locked ahead in pure determination. He had really inspired that entire group. Only to leave them behind, to seek out even stronger foes and trouble. Our protagonist really needed to test the limits of his healing talent now. It would be completely foolish to risk his life later on sheer overconfidence. If he ended up dead, his little sister would have nobody left to protect her. Dying was absolutely not an option, so he pushed straight into monster territory. As he went deeper, a terrible stench began to fill the air. He wondered if he had stumbled right into the heart of their nest. Suddenly, he sensed something incredibly wrong, and you will not believe what happens next. Our guy moved with lightning speed, desperately trying to figure out what was happening. He leaped right into the middle of the chaos, only to get completely wrecked. A massive force smacked him right out of the sky like a fly. It had been ages since he got hit that hard, and he definitely did not miss it. Though it was probably a good thing he left those other guys behind. They would have been wiped out instantly. He went flying but recovered fast. He was not about to get tossed around without seeing who hit him. That was incredibly disrespectful, and he wanted some answers from whoever did that. The least he deserved was a proper introduction from this giant hand. It did not even seem attached to a body, just massive and smashing everything. What kind of terrifying monster is made of just one giant hand? Either way, our boy was not backing down as he kept dodging around it. He needed to study his foe first, checking out its movements and reach. He had to find the perfect angle to strike when he landed safely. The actual beast finally jumped out, and oh boy, it was hideous. To make matters worse, the massive creature was completely naked. The good news was that